Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Transatlantic Call-In Show, a show where you can call in and talk to trans people about arguments, questions, concerns, all that jazz. With me today, we have Riverboat Jack. It's my first time hosting with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Just hanging in there in this crazy, crazy world we live in at the moment.
It does feel like something has come a little bit unhinged at the moment. So I'm glad to hear you're doing well.
Yeah, and for all of you out there, like I said, this is a live call-in show. We've got some people working their way into the call-in queue, but if you would like to ask us a question, have a debate, especially if you think that trans people if you think trans people should compete in their assigned sex at birth division, if you think that trans people shouldn't exist, if you think trans minors shouldn't get gender affirming care, definitely we want to talk with you. Please, if you are in the US, we would like for you to use the number at the bottom of your screen, 720-619-2288. Or if you're outside of North America, you can use the web link, which is in the description below, if you'd like to get your call in. But while we kind of wait for these callers to get all screened up, let's go to the poll from last week. All right, so there was a bit of some miscommunication with this poll last week, but the text says, is it worse to be trans or be in communication with Epstein post conviction? And I think there was some misunderstanding of what we meant. So I think the intent was for this to be a moral stance of, is it worse morally to be a trans person or to be J.K. Rowling? Um, but I think a lot of people misinterpreted this maybe as, is it harder to be trans or to be J.K. Rowling? So with that being said, we had 4% of you saying that it was worse to be trans and 96% saying worse to be in communication with Epstein. Riverboat Jack, do you have kind of any thoughts or discussion on this?
Oh, it's absolutely worse to be someone who willingly associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And I don't know, it's pretty weird that Joanne deleted her yacht transportation logs after people started noticing she may or may not have been in the files. Um, just kind of weird, just strange.
Yeah, it's something that, like, constantly in the media, trans people are being referred to as groomers. But I haven't seen any. I mean, granted, there's a lot of redacted info in the Epstein files, but you would think that if there were trans people in the Epstein files, then they would be eager to share that out. But if it's odd that the people that are so clearly against groomers are the ones defending people who worked and communicated with Epstein. Like, they're in favor of those people, but are against trans people existing.
And
So
and like I was going through some of the files the other day on my show, and there's a weird obsession among all of these folks associated with Epstein with trans people. Like it's really gross.
yeah, for sure. So definitely, if anybody in the audience has further comments on this topic, please leave comments down below. You can talk about it in the side chat as well. Or if you have a contentious view on this, definitely call in. If you think it is worse to be a trans person than to be associated with Epstein, we want to talk to you. So give us a call. Don't be hiding out in the side chat like I know a lot of you do. Um, and before we get into calls, I just want to remind everybody of a couple things. Number one, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell for notifications so you know when we're live. All of that really, really helps us. Also, if you want to leave a super chat, we will read out the ones that are $5 or more at the end of the show. And if you give a hashtag Team Ben or hashtag Team Jack, or some variety of our names. You will vote for us, and the loser has to defend a silly position at the end of the show. So make sure you're getting those in throughout the episode if you would like those to be read on the air. All right, you ready to get into our first call of the day?
Oh, I'm so excited.
All right. Oh, and I guess first I should announce what this week's poll is before we go in depth on it. So I'll show it on the screen real quick before we go into our first call. There we go. So this week's poll is: should trans men be forced to participate with women's teams in professional sports? So get your answer in the side chat, yes or no, and we will discuss this in a little bit.
Oh, I'm so excited to discuss it.
Yeah. All right. Let's just go in order here. Let's go with B from Virginia. B, you are live on the line with Ben and Riverboat Jack. It sounds like you want to talk about trans literature. Tell us a bit more about your position.
Okay. There's a weird echo. I don't know what's going. Um, Basically, I feel like there are people who take just like there's Bible beaters, there's trans literature beaters. The whole. Wouldn't it be great if only the things that suited my narrative were true? Let's just pretend like the parts that don't suit my narrative are true. And when it's pointed out, no, unfortunately, if you're going to claim your book is realistic, life doesn't work like that. It's not sunshine and rainbows.
What do you?
What?
What?
Yeah, what book are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
what work of trans literature are you talking about?
Um, no specific work of trans literature, just the vast majority. And unfortunately, I believe you're about to go to No True Scotsman when I
No,
tell you.
I'm just genuinely confused what you mean by trans literature. Like books written by trans people? Like I know a lot of trans people write sci-fi. Like what are you talking about?
I'm not sure how to answer that question. If you're an author and you tag your own work as this is a piece of trans literature, that's what I'm talking about.
So I'm really confused, and so there's some ambiguity with the term literature, right? And I think that's part of this, because a lot of times when people say trans literature, they don't mean fiction, or they don't mean like a book. A lot of times when I see the word literature, I think of scientific literature. I think of the studies that are being used to guide healthcare decisions. So
I am talking about fiction.
So I'm just
sorry.
But I'm confused because okay, let's say a trans person writes a book, and even if we use a couple different examples, one of a nonfiction book, let's say a trans person just telling their story to the world. That could be one example of this. And then another example could be fiction, where someone includes a trans character or multiple trans characters into the story. And these could be very, very different things. And either way, I don't see how this is any way comparable to the Bible, because the intent is totally different, right? So the Bible is meant to tell you how to live your life and tell you about the religion that you follow. Whereas in both of the examples of literature I mentioned, those are just works of writing to either be appreciated or to share a story from someone. It's not the same as a religious textbook. So I'm confused about how you got to this comparison, especially since you can't even define what literature you're talking about. So you'd think if you were really bothered by this, maybe you'd have a specific example that
I
is what
can
you
give you
mean.
about 10,000 examples. Go on
Just
Amazon,
give us one.
type in the
One
word
Just give us
example.
one,
trans,
please.
followed by your favorite type of fiction. You're going to get about 10,000 or so AI assisted, pumped out, in mass, low effort.
So B, what if, okay, I could do the same thing with romance. I could type in romance into any search bar from any bookstore, Amazon, what have you. I could look for romance novel, romance literature, romance book, whatever. The term romance would generate so much traffic. And if I were to use romance in place of trans for what you're talking about, wouldn't that be the same thing? Are you just saying that there's a lot of trans books out there? And if so, I don't see the problem with there being books out there about trans people. In the same way that I don't think there's a problem about sci-fi or romance novels.
I guess I value what I would describe as quality over quantity. I'm going to assume that you, Dr. Ben, did something today.
So
And
you,
if I
so
ask you
so B,
to
so
tell
you
me the
assume,
story
so you're,
of what you
so
did,
you're, no, B, so you assume that books written by trans people are inherently low quality. Is that what you are suggesting?
no, I am not. No, I am not.
So then what are you saying? Oh, you're gonna say that the entire genre, you're using an entire genre of literature to say that it's the same thing as people quoting the Bible. Like, that's a bit ridiculous, right? Like, and sure, you could make an argument for if a single author wrote a bunch of novels all at once, maybe their talent would be diluted in that. But we're talking thousands, hundreds of thousands of authors
I'm
in the
also
world that could be writing.
I'm also just confused here. Like, are you just saying, like, is your problem here that you think like trans people write bad books or write poor quality books? Like, what exactly are you trying to argue?
Okay. I tried to give an example of what I'm talking about. You did something today. You are a trans person. The story of what you did today is the story of a trans person. Is that story going to be thrilling? No, because unfortunately that's not the world we live in. And I run into the situation of, oh, that can't be true because it doesn't make for a good story. Much like people who turn to the Bible go, that can't be true because it doesn't make for a good story.
Again, these are totally different genres too. Like, there are some people who write realistic everyday stuff, and that's what some people want to read. And there's some people that write fantasy.
This also doesn't seem to be an issue specific to trans people. This seems to be just you have an issue with fiction.
Okay, you are correct. This isn't just about trans people. It's just that you're trans focused, so I'm focusing on trans people.
Why is this our problem? We're not authors. We're not these people writing this book. If you like, I'm not sure why this is our problem or why you need to make it about trans people when your issue is that you don't like fiction.
I'll tell you exactly why. Because now, admittedly, it's been years. I wrote in, and I can quote exactly the response I got. My issues with how a group that I value was being represented was compared to walking into a room and complaining about what someone's dreaming about.
Okay, so first of all, B, I have a important question. So if you wrote into an author to complain about how a certain group of people were represented.
Into the line. I wrote into the line. I wrote into
and
you guys.
What did you say to the line? Like, what was that about?
It seems like you're getting your concepts of what life is like for a particular group from how that group is represented in pornography frankly.
What?
What?
Wait,
Excuse
what?
me.
Why
You
didn't
think
okay,
that
if this was about pornography, why didn't you start out with that? Why are you talking
It's
about
not about
go on
pornography.
Amazon?
I'm saying your guys' idea. The
No,
way
I
the
don't really
host,
think so. I don't think so. For one, for one, like the only experiences that I communicate are my own, and I don't know. I have some cool life stories. Like I've done some cool things. Um,
yes,
but that
I
doesn't mean
don't
that
doubt
it's
that.
unattainable. It's attainable things because I've done it. There are other stories of people on this channel that have done cool things. There's also mundane
Yes,
things that we've done. Celebrating the things that go on in life as a trans person isn't communicating anything unrealistic. It seems like you have a problem that doesn't exist. Like you're making things a problem, like you want to be angry at us for something, but you're having such a hard time putting words to what exactly you're angry about that it sounds like you just want to be angry at trans people or you want to be angry at our show.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
because
your call's been dropped because this is a waste of our time.
because like part of it is like that nothing like there's a lot of porn I've heard of cis people. Like this is not like there are tons of books written by cis people. This is not a problem. So like whatever problem that existed here, I'm still not entirely sure what it is. Just seems to be with the concept of telling stories at all. That was wild.
Yeah, that was just really odd. Um, yeah, we can move on to the next caller. We do have open lines, folks, if you want to get your calls in. Um, this next one looks like it could be fairly productive. Let's talk to Aiden, him from Maine. I get some of the M states messed up. Aiden, you are live on the line with Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. Sounds like you want to talk about what is gender, what is sex, and how do you deal with not looking woman enough? Do you want to anything else you want to add to that, or did we get that pretty well for you, Aiden? Aiden, hello? Are you there?
Oh, hello. Sorry.
Ready.
Hey, you're live on the line. What would you like to talk about?
I'm just questioning my gender and all that stuff, and online I've been trying to do like research and stuff like that, and there's just a lot of like people using the term gender, people using the term sex interchangeably, not using I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm articulating it very well, but they just kind of don't. It's not like there's a concrete, solid definition on them. So trying to like I don't know, be fluid between those two is like hard, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
I
think
just don't
that
even know like what gender is or what sex is, and like what like I'm like questioning being trans, so I try to like wear I don't know, more feminine clothes or whatever, but I just don't really know what it means. Like I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how to put it in words really well, but
yeah, I think there you're right. In a colloquial sense, like gender gets thrown around willy-nilly quite a bit. Sex, especially by conservatives, gets thrown around willy-nilly like crazy.
yeah,
And so it can be pretty confusing. But generally, how I think about it is that gender is kind of a social construct. It is the construction that we make for ourselves based on a set of attributes that in our society is generally considered to be masculine, feminine, what have you. And so um, different people vibe more based on their experiences, based on who they are, with different gender identities, which can be different combinations of those masculine, feminine, non-gendered traits. And
right.
so it does wind up being messy, because social constructions do tend to be messy. They don't have those clean cut lines. And then sex tends to be more of the what has typically been considered more hard coded, but as we have learned more about sex, we learn that it's more and more variable than a lot of conservatives at the very least imagine. We
Okay.
could have a much more in-depth conversation about that, of course, but
Yeah.
just as a general starting point, I think that might be helpful.
Yeah. No, that's definitely helpful. Yeah. So I guess what I'm having trouble with is I'm a bit younger. I'm like 19, so I'm living with my parents right now, and I told them that I was like experimenting with all of this, and they're not like unsupportive or anything. They're fully like supportive and stuff, but I don't really think they even know what it is. So they like almost look at me weirdly when I wear more feminine clothes or I don't know, anything like that. And they're not like trying to be mean or anything. And I'm not really sure how to have a conversation, a productive conversation with them, because I don't want to like make them feel bad or anything. So I guess that will help me there. My next thing really was, how do I get over, I said, not being woman enough. That's not really a great way to put it, but I was rushing because the auto screener was beeping at me and stuff. But I wrote it as, how do I get over the feeling of not being woman enough? And by that I mean, how do I try to, I don't know. Sorry.
Take your time.
So like when I dress up in feminine clothing or whatever, and I go out, I feel internally more feminine, but on the outside, like I have a very masculine jaw, and my body, like my arms are very like veiny and like just things like that. So I internally feel like a woman, but when I look at myself, there's this like cognitive dissonance maybe of just like this doesn't feel right, and I don't know how to get over that. It's kind of holding me back from just, I don't know, being myself more.
Yeah,
And I was wondering if you guys had anything on that.
I certainly struggled with that. And I think something that helped me find a bit of peace with that feeling is the idea that like women struggle with this, cis, trans, whatever. They struggle with this feeling all the time, you know. And
Mhm.
you cannot it is very rare to find a cis woman who looks in the mirror and doesn't find things to criticize. And in fact, I bet you could find a cis woman who feels exactly the same about a lot of their physical features too. And so
Mm.
we tend to be our worst critics because we've internalized a lot of self-policing when it comes to our gender expression, when it comes to our bodies, and that feeling, that dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling, that dysphoria is really, really jarring. And it can be really debilitating. But I think framing it in line with how other trans women and women in general have struggled in the past to like find acceptance with their selves can be a bit empowering, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And can, I think, give you a little bit more. It can make you feel a lot less alone, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never thought about it like that. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think
I guess sorry, what was that?
yeah, I was just gonna jump in and say, like that feeling that you have, you describe it as cognitive dissonance, and it's definitely probably difficult to label it as gender dysphoria. It sounds like you're having gender dysphoria. And I know that putting
Mm.
that label on it makes it feel more real that this is what you're experiencing. And I understand that period of exploration where you know who you are, and you know where you want to end up, but it's really scary to think, oh yeah, I am one of those people. Like, gender dysphoria
Mm,
applies to me. This is what I'm experiencing it. Because I think then that really kind of takes you onto that path, which can be it's a very it can be a very fun and beautiful journey, but there's also I understand a lot of fear, especially in this current climate with that. Um,
hmm
so I applaud you for kind of taking those leaps and exploring it and having these thoughts. Is there's a phrase that a lot of us will kind of joke about, like these aren't cis thoughts. Like the idea that if since you're
mm,
having these questions, those aren't really questions that most cis people will have. So I think you
right.
have a good idea of who you are. And it's some of these early hurdles that make it seem super, super daunting. And I'm not going to
hmm
lie and tell you that the beginning of transition is easy from either side. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to go in your direction. I do know what it's like to go in a masculinizing direction, and either way is not very fun at the beginning. There's a lot of heartache. There's a lot of people misgendering you. There's a lot of times where you're going to want to be in the closet. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. And I hope that you can have a good support system through that. I think like no matter where you go on this journey, I think having that support system, especially before you do anything that could be potentially more dangerous or more permanent, like because it'll be you might find that you're having a great time with those things, but at least having somebody, maybe going in to the bathroom at the same time as you just to alleviate some of those fears that you may have, I think are all some good ideas. But um,
hmm
it's going to be hard. But those thoughts that you're having are normal and they don't make you any less valid. So even the fact that you're having those thoughts, um, you shouldn't think that you are any less than somebody else who's gone on this journey or any less than anybody else of the gender you identify with. So
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Um, yeah. Hmm. Well, thank you
what other
guys.
questions do you have?
Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I've never done this
Oh,
before.
You're okay.
don't
I have
worry.
one more question, and it's kind of relating to HRT, because I want to I'm looking into that. But I've heard there's a lot of kind of silly. I've heard there's a lot of needles in that, and that's like my number one fear in life, and it's really preventing me from even like going to the doctors, just because I don't want to have a needle in my body or anything.
You don't have to. You don't have to necessarily. Different routes of medication will have kind of different onset, kind of different speed of transition, if you will. Oftentimes,
Mm,
injectables work faster than some other methods, but each person's going to react differently. But especially for estrogen, there are so many more methods for estrogen than there are for testosterone. So you all kind of have a
okay.
leg up on that. But you've got patches, you've got pills, you've got uh, the needle. Um, so you've got a lot more options, and you can discuss with your provider that you go to kind of which one best suits your needs.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I for reference, I take the pills. They've worked great for me. The one thing I will say is that like the one requirement for needles is just they'll want to do blood work just to make sure your levels are safe and there's no like kidney stuff going on just periodically. But
Okay.
I've found I'm also not someone who's great with needles, and I've found just once you're in the chair, just looking away and letting them do their thing has worked pretty well for me. Just don't even look at the
Okay.
needle, and it's a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what it is. Like my number one fear. I just got to work on that, I guess. But thank you guys. This was really helpful. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
have
welcome,
some
and good luck.
conversations with my parents now and stuff. Thank you. Have a good day.
yeah. Thanks for your call. Definitely call back in and give us some updates. We'd love to, or if you have any more questions too, we'd love to chat with you some more.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
I hope that that answer on gender was sufficient. I know I gave a very general one, but hopefully
No,
it's helpful.
I think that was good. I think like there's definitely a time and a place for getting into the nitty-gritty. I like for a caller that's that new into the process, I think it's fair to leave it more general and they can work the rest out later.
Yeah.
Would you like to discuss the poll before we get into
Ooh,
the next few callers?
yes, let's do it.
All right. So this one says, should trans men be forced to participate with women's teams in professional sports? And let me look over at the side chat. Oh, I didn't see the number because it changed. But we had some amount of people who voted yes and some amount of people that voted no. And
It's
we'll see more
4% said
definitive
yes,
numbers.
96% said no.
Okay. So God has spoken on that one. But before I hand this over to Riverboat Jack to kind of discuss, I picked this poll specifically with relation to the Winter Olympics. There is a trans man competing. I guess he already competed for alpine skiing and probably some of the other ski events. I don't know exactly which ski events he was all a part of. But his name is Ellis Lundholm, and he's a trans man from Sweden. And it sounds like he has not started any gender affirming care at this point in time because of his athlete status. He wanted to continue to compete and wanted to compete at the Olympic level. And so, with having the testosterone, I cannot speak, testosterone threshold you have to meet to stay in his current division. He has not undergone any of that. And it sounds like his legal documents are still listed as female so that he can compete in the women's division. But that's kind of the context for all of this. Do you have any thoughts? It sounded like you had a lot to talk about with
Oh,
this one.
yeah, it's especially interesting because I have very little knowledge of the Olympics. I haven't been paying a lot of attention, but especially if a trans person hasn't started HRT, like there's no, don't like like you should compete in whatever division you want to compete in. Like generally speaking, that's my take on it. Um I know that a lot of transphobes have a big problem with that, but like a lot of the metadata that has been meta studies that have been coming out recently have shown again like even like trans athletes that have started HRT, there's no meaningful difference in athletic performance between like trans women and cis women and trans men, cis men. Um, it's just not a meaningful distinction, and it really seems to be like a manufactured outrage by the far right that has, for whatever unfortunate reason, gained a foothold in our society these days to become a point of cultural just fear mongering. And yeah, I don't know. I just think generally speaking, I'm not super invested in sports, so I'm just kind of like, if you're not on HRT and you want to compete in a different division, like generally speaking, go for it. Like it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, it's a situation where, like, with the recent kind of politics of the Olympics, there have been trans people that have competed in the Olympics before. Namely, there was one trans woman weightlifter who like didn't do very well even at the Olympics. But there was that whole outrage about that situation, and so Trump had done this thing where he like told the Olympic Committee, it was like, hey, if you allow trans women to compete in women's divisions, then like whatever. I don't even know how much funding Trump has anything to do with the Olympics, or if it was just for the U.S. team. I don't know. Trump thinks he has power over a lot of things that he really doesn't. But whatever. He tried to pressure them into not allowing trans people to compete in their rightful division in the Olympics. And so a lot of the attention goes to trans women, of course, because that's really where people like to rage bait this issue. And so trans men kind of end up on the back burner, and people don't really consider, like, okay, if we establish these blanket bans or these blanket rules for trans people, then we get situations like where that trans man wrestler who was on
Yeah.
HRT had to compete with women, and that's not really fair because that person is on masculinizing steroids and does receive those physical benefits. So it's like, if you're going to play this card of biological essentialism, at least evaluate what you're claiming and what you're advocating for and what we should be enforcing. Because if your whole thing is to not leave women at a disadvantage, then forcing trans men to compete with women is giving women a disadvantage. But with that being said, like, there are athletes that will choose to undergo HRT or not, depending on what division that they go in. I do think it's fair to say trans men who have high testosterone should not be in the women's division. Like, they
Mhm.
should go to the men's division to keep it fair. Um, but they shouldn't be forced to if they want to compete in the women's division. If we keep it all at the same, if you keep the same standards across the board, um, like, so if you want to use a testosterone threshold, then you hold trans women to that, you hold cis women to that, and you hold trans men to that.
Mhm.
But it needs to be the same, but people can, pick their divisions accordingly. So, and something else about this too, this skier was repeatedly misgendered by NBC's announcers during the Olympic coverage, and they have since apologized for misgendering, although it is unclear if they did that for PR reasons or if that was a genuine apology. But at least, there's some progress on that.
And my hot sports take is that I think we should figure out a different way to structure our leagues so it's not just men versus men, women versus women. That's my hot take. I think we could figure out a better way to organize sports.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. And something else, like, for straight people being just weird about their criteria for different things, I love how every year there's people complaining how, like, figure skating is gay. But you have like these, like, a lot of male figure skaters are like tall, very athletic, muscular men, and in pairs they are skating with very attractive petite women. So kind of the picture of what what straight people, you'd think straight people would want. But that's gay. But then something like doubles luge is where you're spooning another man just going down a hill at 90 miles an hour. That's not gay. So I don't know. Straight people
No,
confuse me.
n- None of it makes any sense. Like it's all it's all just based in a out of a position of fear for what it might mean for like a lot of cis het folks, what it might mean for their own sexuality, for their own gender, and it has nothing to do with the actual sport. It has nothing to do with the actual like competition. It's just a projection of their own insecurities.
Definitely. And with that, let's get on to another caller. We do have open lines, so just a caveat, a reminder for people. So we do want people to call in. However, again, this is not a place for you to come preach. It's not a place for you to come shill your own content. Like, keep it to questions that are relevant. Um, but we would like to talk with you all. But some people are getting booted because they're coming in trying to preach at us, and that is not really appreciated. So, um, let's take our next caller. This is Everett, she, her from Oregon. You are Everett. You are
Hello?
live online. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Howdy.
What would you like to talk about?
Yeah. So I came across an argument against trans people, essentially, biological essentialism, kind of. Uh, and I don't really know how to combat it from a biological standpoint, and I'm not as good with the like psychological or sociological one. So I guess asking for help with this.
All right, what's the argument?
Yeah, lay it on us.
Yeah, it's that a woman is anyone who underwent Wolffian embryonic development in the womb.
So I already see some issues with that one, because if we're talking Wolfian, which so like our terminology has evolved a little bit because now we say mesonephric or paramesonephric for those tissues because of the tissue layers that they come from. But those are specifically terms related to internal development, like so not external anatomy, it's internal anatomical features. And there are people who develop both or one or neither of those tracks. It's a lot more rare for it to be neither, but that's something that is really difficult to visualize from the outside, and a lot of people could have both tracks or remnants of one of the other tracks and not know it. So that's my kind of initial pushback.
Yeah, because there are DSDs with those too, but I couldn't find or didn't find at least anything kind of showing that just demonstrating that explicitly doesn't work the same way that I found stuff saying that like, hey, chromosomes doesn't work because of like Swyer syndrome and stuff.
Yeah. So are you pretty comfortable with the arguments as far as that goes with kind of sexual differentiation, or is that really the one that you wanted to hone here today?
I'm comfortable with most sexual stuff, sexual differentiation arguments. It was really just a Wolffian or Millerian, I guess, too, argument.
I also just find, just in general, like the folks who are making the biological essentialist arguments, like I don't personally find any of those arguments like even remotely compelling. I think they're a deflection from any actual issue that the folks making them actually have. Like they're looking for something to hinge their bigotry on, and like ultimately, like for them it boils down to like, well, there is an objective reason that I have this completely arbitrary bigotry that I've latched onto, you know. And I think like oftentimes if you're encountering these types of arguments, like reorienting it towards like, okay, what does this mean in like practical terms in everyday life? Like what are you looking at their Wolffian tissue? Like are you like what exactly are you trying, how would this be useful to you in any way when it comes to actually like gendering trans people? Like it's I feel like for them it is just a way to try and codify their bigotry without like actually engaging with the day-to-day experience of being alive and potentially interacting with a trans person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
the
that
way
makes
I
a lot
would
of
go
sense.
too. Yeah, it's like if we're talking about things related to sports or bathroom bills, etc., like all of it comes down to an assumption made on the person's part that uh biology is good enough to explain all these differences. But if you narrow down to what is the thing that you are objecting to, like with the bathroom thing, like what is it you are objecting to? People going into a stall, peeing, and then leaving, hopefully washing their hands somewhere in there. Like it's like if you're gonna say that biology is the thing that matters here, like clearly your way of enforcing it is going to be very very invasive. Kind of the same thing with the sports thing. If you're claiming that anatomy is the important feature, whereas if we even if we break down the sports conversation and say, okay, what is the thing that you were claiming gives them the advantage? It's not the penis. That doesn't give any kind of sports advantage. And in some cases, even like we saw with pole vaulting in the last Olympics, how that gave a disadvantage because somebody lost because of his penis. So it's not that. So what is the factor that's making the difference? Okay, testosterone. Okay, well, we know that like most people have some level of testosterone in their body. And regardless of what sex they were assigned, some people have higher or lower levels of testosterone. So why don't we focus on the testosterone level and not focus on the anatomy? Because these are totally different things. So I totally co-sign the more utility discussion out of all of it. And even like with the bathroom thing, I will look people dead in the eye and say, how do you want us to enforce this? How should we ban people from the bathrooms? Like who gets investigated for who gets to use the bathroom or not? And they tend to panic a lot when you bring out those kinds of arguments.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea to talk about it because, yeah, you can't or shouldn't be able to at least check everyone's genitals before they go to the bathroom. That's just really stupid for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, and then taking that to the next level too, like if they bring up the arguments of protecting women, like, okay, so do you think genital inspections at point of entry to a bathroom do you think that's protecting more women or harming more women? Like, it's pretty clear to see that there's measurable harm from one of these and really not any measurable harm from just letting people like do their business and wash their hands and leave. So any other arguments you want to run by us today?
I think that's about it. That's the only one I wasn't able to like comfortably, I guess, address.
Gotcha. Riverboat Jack, do you have any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thought I have is essentially just doubling down on kind of the utility arguments or like enforcement or um, just even not even like you maybe as a separate category, like just the thought process that goes behind gendering someone in public. Like it doesn't even have to be utility. It's you can just point out the fact that like none of these biological arguments have anything to do where if you're walking down the street and you see another person, um, the thought process behind gendering them. Like there's just nothing. It's completely divorced from the actual experience of gendering people. And it's really when you boil it down, all of the sex conversations around like different tissues and stuff, that's just cool science shit. That's just cool scientific knowledge. It's interesting to know about it. It's interesting to talk about, but it's not really an argument that is going to delegitimize trans people existing.
Yeah.
All right. If there's nothing else, um, then I guess we'll say goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Anything
Have a
else?
great day.
All
Yeah, you
right. Thanks
too.
for your call. Take care. All right. We're screening some more callers here. There's been a lot of people who are not listening to what we said about not bringing certain topics or not trying to preach at the call screener. So in the meantime, while we're kind of waiting for that, do you have anything going on with your channel? Anything for the audience to watch out for?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about I cover the news and politics from a leftist angle, and yesterday we went and covered Pam Bondi testifying in front of Congress and getting her ass handed to her, which was honestly very cathartic to watch. Um, so I'd recommend people check out some of her interactions with Congress. And I will also say, just I am shocked. I'm shocked. Last night I had nonstop transphobes talking at me for like 5 or 6 hours constantly throughout the night, and I told them to come and call in on this show. And a lot of them are like, oh yeah, I'll call in 5 times, and like then they never do. They don't. transphobes, why are you all cowards? Like, why? I thought you guys had all of science on your side. Like just the logic of the universe was on your side. Where you at? Where you calling in?
Right.
Should be really
I
easy
know.
for you, right?
Yeah, I saw some people in side chat that were talking shit, especially before the show.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting. We're here and we're waiting for you to call us and tell us why you're right. Because maybe I will detransition tomorrow if you can convince me of a good reason to do that. I probably won't, but you can try. You can you can think that you're gonna get somewhere with that. Um, but some other things to look forward to in the upcoming week. We, of course, I like to say that this is the best show on the line because it is the best show on the line, but there are other shows as well, and there's a pretty busy week ahead. So tomorrow, there's going to be a Cuz I Wanna here on this channel with Forrest Valkai and Gutsip Given. So I know they take a lot of calls and have pretty long shows. So definitely don't want to miss that one. And then on Sunday, we have Matt Dillahunty, of course, and Austin Archer for the regular Sunday show. And then the After Dark show, we have Forrest Valkai and Telltale. And then on the 16th, Skeptalk with Godless Engineer and Gutsick Gibbon, Chewed Gum with Alyssa and Promise, The Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty and Ian Harris. And then next week on Transatlantic, I will be here again with Josie. And there's so many events this upcoming week. I got a huge list. You better be writing these down. There's another Cuz I Wanna next Friday as well, and then
goodness.
another one next Saturday. So another one next Friday with Forrest. And then on the 21st, there's one with Justin. And I think the Sarah that's with Justin on the 21st is one that I've seen before. And if
Yeah,
it's
she's
the
been
one
on
I'm
the channel
thinking
before.
of, okay, yeah, she's the one with the PhD in physiology. Is that Sarah?
Oh, I have no idea if that's her qualification. She's Sarah leaving Faith.
I think that is the Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah, she has a PhD in physiology, so super smart. Great person to talk to. So lots of cool events coming up on this channel, stuff that you do not want to miss. And then of course on my personal channel we have trivia tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So if you think you can win at trivia, if you want to be in the running for a cool prize, then show up. And we keep getting callers that just like want to keep dropping. So, Voice of God, do you want to
Yeah, I'll
harass the side chat?
I'll just let you guys know. So the problem we're having right now is a lot of people are calling in just to like kind of tell us their thoughts on something, and really the point of this show is to like ask a question or challenge some position that the hosts have. So yeah, if you don't necessarily have to be like a transphobe to call in. Obviously we've taken like an advice call today, but you have to like actually present something. So if you're in the chat right now and you're like, oh, I agree with most trans rights positions, but maybe like this one thing I just don't really think makes sense, and I really would like to understand it better or be convinced better, that would be a great topic to call in with. So like let's just throw out some prompts here for you guys. Trans women are women and trans men are men. Gender affirming care for minors is evidence-based. There's a good one. A lot of people get all triggered about that one. Trans people deserve to play in whatever sport they want, or you guys can moderate those if you want to give your versions of those that you're willing to defend. But just some prompts for you guys. So if there's anyone in the audience who's like, oh, that's a little bit of a step too far for me, that is a good thing for you to call in on. But yeah, give us some kind of challenge.
Yeah, please give us a better argument than the person who called in earlier to just have a problem with the concept of literature. I came here to argue, damn it.
Yeah, or if you have a problem with the Progress Pride flag being brought to the Olympics and brought onto the ice for figure skating, we want to talk to you. Or if you are trans or an ally and have a hot take. Give us your hot takes. We may agree, we may disagree, but this is the show. Like if you, or even this is a great time too if you want to get into the nuances, like the nitty gritties of definitions of gender or uh all that stuff. Call in. This is the time.
I'm gonna go take a bio break real quick. Sorry.
So it's just me on the show right now. I have taken over the show. This is my plan ever since I was first invited, was to restore the patriarchy of TACIS. So I have successfully done it, and the show can be over now. No, just kidding. Some other topics. So I know we've been talking a lot about the Olympics lately, but the issue with the flag that I was just mentioning, there's a skater. Hold on. So Amber Glenn is a figure skater for Team USA who identifies as bisexual and was wearing a pride pin and brought out the Progress Pride flag out onto the ice. I believe it's not like during the routine, but either like before or after it. And so a lot of people were accusing her of virtue signaling, and trying to stir up controversy with being woke and all that stuff. So kind of along those lines, I would love to hear if people have thoughts about, should queer people bring the flag out? Should people make a spectacle of it during big sports events? Do you think it was inappropriate for her to bring that flag out? I'd love to hear more arguments about that. In my personal opinion, I think it's awesome that we have some representation that is persisting even with this kind of hostile political climate. I know there are a lot of athletes representing Team USA that have openly denounced the administration. We had, there's one, I don't know what sport he's in, but somebody wrote "fuck ice" in the snow, and is now getting death threats for that. Lots of fun stuff happening at this Olympics. But I was just vamping about the pride flag while you're gone.
Oh, I also just want to. I saw a picture of that guy who wrote "fuck ice" in the snow, and just gotta say, excellent aim. Just like very impressive.
Yeah.
Appeared he wrote it in urine, so you know.
Yeah, there's also, this is not a specifically LGBTQ thing, but just going along with the theme of kind of political statements that have been made at the Olympics. There's an athlete, I believe from bobsled, who got disqualified because of like expression of, like, there's some pretty strict code for what you're allowed to put on your uniform, what you're allowed to put on your helmet, and all that. And so one of the bobsled team members from Ukraine put the pictures of athletes who died in the Russia-Ukraine war on his helmet. And he just recently got disqualified from his event because he refused to take the pictures off or wear a different helmet. So that kind of brings into the question of where, like, where's the line between freedom of expression, and then where can organizations kind of say this is our limit on what you can customize and what you can do. So it's an interesting thing there as well. Do you have any thoughts on that one? I know it's not LGBTQ, but
I think you summarized the thoughts I would have had pretty well.
Yeah.
God, I just, the amount of people having problems with, like, oh, the flags that they brought, the flags. I don't know. Like, find some real problems in your life. Like, genuinely. You know, there are people in your community you could be spending that outrage on to, like, I don't know, motivate them to house the homeless, or feed the hungry or something, but like you're sitting there raging over a flag for hours on end. It's crazy.
Right, and they're angry about, an athlete bringing a pride flag, but not angry enough about, what ICE is doing in the US or the files or the fact that a lot of the gender critical movement is now like associated with the files.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I think those are some bigger fish to fry than one queer athlete brought a pride flag. Like, but somehow that's getting, and I mean, we have a term for this. It's called a distraction.
Mm-hmm. True.
but but it's really wild when you think about it.
I'm gonna try to work on getting some visual prompts up on the screen for people to maybe hope that helps get some people who are scrolling by maybe to consider calling in.
Yeah.
Um,
We're seeing someone. I see someone in chat has been trying to call in, but is saying they're getting hung up on by the call screener. I don't
okay,
know.
well, if you're getting hung up on by our call screener, it's probably because you're not listening to the rules of the show. Because this is like we've had this call screener a long time. She's amazing at what she does, and I trust her implicitly on her judgment on the calls. It could also be an issue with the web client. If you're using the web client to call in, especially if you're within the US, that is not allowed. You need to call in with an actual phone number if you're calling in within the US or Canada. So it could be that problem. Also, sometimes the web client just breaks. It doesn't work right. So that also could be part of the issue. So try calling in with an actual phone number or anything else. There shouldn't be any tolls or anything if you're calling in within the US or Canada with an actual phone number. I see like someone's calling in right now from Virginia and they're on a web
Yep.
client. So they're likely, I mean, I'll see if I can get just to
Oh, the web client. They're clarifying.
Okay. Yeah. So try calling in not with the web client.
yeah. Mostly because here's the thing, you guys. The web client is an IP address, right? And so that IP address can come from anywhere. And if you're using like a VPN or something, you could be completely hiding your identity. You could be a troll. You could be a racist. You could be a horrible, horrible person about to spew profanities on our show. And so we don't allow the web client from outside the US. So that way, if you are a real person, at least we have some means of blocking you and preventing you from doing that in the future. This is just to make sure that we are having good faith conversations with people who are actually going to be willing to have some skin in the game. Also, I apologize. My dog is barking so much in the background. She's big upset right now.
I bet she's cute though.
Okay, we are getting some screens coming through, and it looks like they are calling in from real numbers. So hopefully we will get some people on the line for y'all real fast. But again, lines are open. Number is 720-619-2288. If you don't think trans women are women, or you don't think trans kids should have access to age-appropriate, evidence-based healthcare, gender-affirming care, call in. Tell us why. We would love to hear why you oppose evidence-based care. That would be great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, just to clarify, did not mean to throw our call screener under the bus. Just to clarify.
Oh, no. That was the chatter. You were just saying what the chatter said, not... Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make it clear. We love our call screeners.
Yeah, we got a few calls coming in now.
That seemed to be effective.
And I was like, well, we had a bunch of people trying to call in that just weren't following the rules, and then they kept getting dropped. So hopefully now we'll have some people following the rules. There was something else I saw something inside chat I was gonna mention, but I don't remember. If you're starting shit in the side chat, just call in.
Yeah, like why start shit in the side chat when you could start shit with us? Like, come on.
100%. Or you could just whine about trans people writing books that you don't like and say it's their problem that you didn't like it. Except when you say book, you don't even mean book, you mean YouTube show. I don't know.
Or anything on Amazon.
All right, we have a caller. Let's talk to Maureen Shear from Canada.
Hi.
Maureen, you are live on the line with Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. What would you like to talk about today?
Okay, this might sound a little odd. I used to watch a show called Coronation Street, and they had a main character that was a trans woman. And when the woman was leaving the show, they killed the character off, and they had a real weird way they did it, I thought, and I wanted your opinion on it. She was afraid at the end when she got very, very sick that she would no longer see herself as Haley, her character, who she was, but she would think that she was the male character she was born, the person she was born as. And I wondered if that's something that could happen. Like, was that true? Because they ended up having her kill herself because she was so afraid of reverting back to this character she had been assigned at birth. Is that something that could happen? It just sounded weird.
No?
Yeah, I've never heard of that happening in real life.
No.
It sounds like
Yeah.
it sounds like something that was written by someone who doesn't really understand trans people.
Well, this was the thing. She was on the show. The character was on the show for so long, and they really addressed, I thought, the issue. She'd become accepted. She was married. I thought they had portrayed her right, and I just thought it was really bad the way they ended that. And it just kind of made it all seem, like they didn't really care about the character at all, because that just sounded weird.
Well, it
Yeah,
kind of
I
seems
don't
like
know.
it comes out of like an idea that like trans people weren't trans before they transitioned and only became
Yeah.
trans afterwards, which isn't really how trans people work.
Yeah, well, that's why I thought it wasn't authentic. I thought they just really ruined it, because she was, supposed to be herself. She was portraying herself. She was who she always was. So how could she revert unless I don't know. It just was really weird the way they had done it. And I don't know, are there trans characters that you've seen portrayed that you really thought, no, this is wrong, or, that were actually being authentic?
I would say like basically any trans representation from like the 90s or the early 2000s is or and even up until today it's flip a coin if it's going to be good or bad.
Yeah.
So like it's been generally pretty bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Do
them
you
that
think
will there's a lot of them that will mistake like trans people versus drag queens. It's like no, trans people are not drag queens. Well, they can be, but that's separate things.
do you think this is one area where to have it be more authentic, that they would actually have trans actors and actresses playing the role because they would know how to play the role?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like it's also a reason why you want like a diverse writers room so that you can write like characters authentically, because if it's a bunch of, cis straight white guys, like a lot of them might not have any understanding about trans people outside of what they imagine the experience to be. And that imagination can often be wrong.
Right. It's like all those infamous novels that I've seen screenshots of people sharing where a cishet man tries to write any female character and just does not understand how the physics of boobs works. Stuff like that. It's like, you were so incredibly wrong. Like, if you just ask somebody from that experience to proofread this, maybe they would tell you that this is really bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really all I had to say. Because I think from the first caller that you had there, that was a mess. But I think it just brought into my mind this character and I just thought it was really badly portrayed at the end after years of, I thought, portraying her well. Anyway, that's all I really had to say.
I appreciate the call.
All right. Yeah, thank you for calling in and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. All right, we've got a potentially more spicy call in the queue, so I'm going to get them on
Ooh.
right now. We're going to talk to Darwin, him from Ohio. Darwin, you are live on the line with Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. It sounds like you want to talk about how are trans rights being violated. Tell us a bit more about your stance on this matter. Hello, Darwin?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Hello?
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, pleased to meet your acquaintances. Just for clarity, what would your pronouns happen to be, Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack?
Him for me.
And she, her for me. Thank you.
Okay. And I was calling in maybe not to turn up the heat per se, but just to ask in what way these things are happening. Specifically, how are trans rights being violated, and what exactly that means. What is it to have a trans right versus like a different right that would be entailed to any other person?
Well,
Just
generally
curious.
speaking, the rights that are typically extended to other people that aren't extended to trans people. So an example of this would be like, you have a right to use a public restroom if you are, a cis person. But there has been an ongoing effort to pass laws to essentially prohibit trans people from using bathrooms. As like a good example of this, or terrible example of this, I guess, the UK
Oh,
and their bathroom laws, where it's essentially like, you can't use the bathroom of the gender you identify as, and also depending on who you are and the time of day and what you look like and how people feel, you might not be able to use the bathroom you don't identify with either. Which is also the catch-22 of any bathroom laws here in the United States. And
okay.
that would just be one minor everyday example, but the effect of that is pushing trans people out of the ability to like live life in society at large, because if you're limited by just
Right.
where you can go to the bathroom, like obviously that pushes you, that seriously curtails your rights in a lot of other ways.
Certainly inconvenient. I wouldn't argue that. There have certainly been times in my life where I have not had sufficient access to bathrooms, and it's that's a real pain in the ass, I'll tell you. Sorry, am I
Yeah.
allowed to swear?
I
Yep.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we're allowed to.
Okay.
And
All
I would
right.
say like it's also not just like, oh, you can't use the bathroom. It's like, if you do in like a place like Florida, there's like a chance that they might try and charge you as like a pedophile. Like they might try and like put you on the sex offender registry list. Like it's not just like an inconvenience. It's like oh, you will be persecuted by the state for the crime of needing to use the bathroom.
Okay, and so you're saying in like public records there are examples of this happening. For example, like persecutorial examples as you just described. Um, but has there been any success in the legislative push to have these restrictions put on place?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there have, and with the Florida example, there's actually a trans man who was trying to follow the rules, So he was assigned female at birth, and he was following the rules and used the women's bathroom. But since he looks like a man, he was actually arrested in the women's bathroom
Oh no.
for breaking the rules, except for
Yeah.
he was following the rules. So yeah, so these are being
Well,
enforced, especially in those states where these bans are being passed. Another example is
so
kind
so
of deviating from
sorry.
the
To,
yeah, no, go for it.
not to. Is it okay if I interrupt?
Yeah, go for it.
So I just wanted to ask if sticking to the example at hand, if so you said the person in Florida was trying to follow the rules, and they happen to be presenting in a seemingly masculine way, at least to the enforcers at hand. um, and so I guess the unwritten rule of this situation is that that person is supposed to look like they're supposed to go in the restroom that they're going into, as in they're supposed to appear feminine, as well as um, also go to the bathroom of their, uh, you know, birth sex.
Yeah, so it's stuff that is impossible to follow the rules properly. And so that's a case where you are effectively being forced out of bathrooms, because if you're if you're wrong if you do and you're wrong if you don't, then what's your choice? Your choice is to stay home and not go out. And ultimately, that's what a lot of these bills end up doing. Is it ostracizes trans people from public society. And so all these kind of collective things, yes, the individual things are absolutely horrible and a violation of human rights. But more so, the combination of these is kind of the intent is to keep people out of the public, and that's what's happening.
So
Other rights that are going
okay,
away is like we're talking healthcare rights, we're talking legal documentation rights, we're talking like depending on where you are, like marriage equality rights, because if your documentation says one thing, and you're in a country that doesn't allow for same-sex marriage, that could be a big issue for you. With the SAVE Act coming up, if you're trans and your documentation does not align with your birth certificate, we're facing risk of not being able to vote. So there are very, very real rights on the line here for trans people.
okay. So in addition to the bathroom situation that we were describing, um, there are other fronts as well, and they've had similar effects.
Yep.
Okay. Um, so, and not to belabor the point, but um, the the bathroom one is of interest to me. I would like to get more details specifically. It's happenstantially unfortunate that the topic is on bathrooms, but it just happened to be the first one that came up. So, um,
Hmm.
I just wanted to know, like, exactly where could you find these laws? Like, it public records of Florida state law, or is this like a regional thing in Florida? You know, like um, just like specifics, and I'm looking for like the letter of the law and like exactly what it's supposed to enforce per se. Because I understand that like this might be an issue where enforcement is not exactly possible, or um, not being executed effectively at the very least. Um,
Well,
I-
so for
I'm just
in
curious to hear
Florida
your thoughts on
for
that.
in Florida specifically, one of the laws against trans people is the facility requirements based on sex act. But similar laws to it have been passed in around 14 other states. Usually barring trans people from using the bathroom they identify with in like uh
Okay.
some public most public institutions, as well as some private institutions, so like public schools, airports, government buildings, etc. Utah and Florida are notable because they criminalize the act as like something that can be escalated and enforced with jail time, not just a fine. So
And you
Okay,
can find
so
them if you Google, you can find the specific bill, and like we were saying, this particular one's titled "Facility Requirements Based on Sex," and it also has CS/HB 1521. If you Google that, you'll go to the Florida Senate, or at least the link I clicked on went to the Florida Senate, and you can read the all of the different versions of this bill that have gone through their system in there. So if you're a little bit if you just put a little bit of time into it, you can go to the state's websites
sure.
and actually like read the bills as they're worded.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have like a pretty good understanding of the contents of these laws?
Not
mean,
verbatim.
yeah, the issue is there are literally thousands of laws that have been introduced to curtail trans people's rights in America over the last, year or so, let alone the last several years. So if you have specific questions, we're happy to engage on those topics, but
Yep.
we
Yeah,
can't
yeah. I
list every
mean,
single
as
one,
specific as the
unfortunately.
bathroom situation. So like the person in Florida, they appeared to be, sorry, was it masculine, and they went to a feminine bathroom or
Yep.
female bathroom,
Because
a woman's bathroom?
yeah, because the bill establishes that the bathroom you're supposed to use is based on your sex. And so
Okay. Right.
your sex, like, and they define it as your sex assigned at birth. So in that case, it's not even about whether you look masculine or feminine. The bill as written
Right.
is that you
Right.
have to align with your birth sex. And so this
That's
is
what I'm
where the
saying.
enforcement
Yeah,
gets
so
really
like,
sticky, is because it's enforced based on how you look. Like people are going to be like the cops are going to be called because somebody looks out of place, but that could be totally not in line with what the bill is asking for. And so that's why a lot of these bills are so ridiculous. It's because people are trying to police expression and police appearances when uh, although they claim that it's just all about protecting
right.
the sexes, but really they're policing expression.
And I mean, like another example, if
Right.
you're interested in looking into this, would be Kansas passed just a couple weeks ago. Their legislature passed essentially a bill that allows private citizens to sue folks that they suspect of being trans for civil damages
Oh,
if they encounter them in a bathroom. Um, so, like it, as you might imagine, this winds up curtailing a lot of the freedom and rights of trans people.
sure.
Because again, cis people can use the bathroom generally without worrying about, opening themselves up to a lawsuit for needing to take a leak or taking a poop. And trans
Right.
people have to figure out which bathrooms in their community are safe enough to go to that they're not going to get arrested by police or have
but
a
so
random
like,
citizen demand to see their genitals. Like it's,
right. So
yeah.
it's interesting that you bring this case up in Utah, and the Utah case is certainly alarming, um, giving Americans more rights to sue each other. Just, I don't know, seems like a step in the wrong direction in any regard, let alone for this. Um, but like as it would apply to the Florida case, and I know this is like different states kinds of things, but if we're talking about like law and its application, it's like what should it be, or what is the kind of thing we're pressing for? And it, if it's up to me, I'm fortunate that it's not up to me. I would just let people use whatever bathroom they need to use. Like my restrictions with regards to bathroom would probably be like, please use the closest one if you must. you know, um, I don't see why it's such a big deal for people. Um, um, and I get that there's like a lot of fear mongering and stuff going on. Um, and that's probably what's driving a lot of these actions. Um, and these precedents being set in law. Um, I'm just wondering exactly where the rubber meets the road as far as the interaction between um, the application of the law as we're seeing it and its actual effects versus um, what is trying to be accomplished, or at least um, as rhetorically admitted from the you know people pushing these policies. I hope any of that made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I
it
think
mostly
so.
makes sense. Do you have other questions about other facets of this? I know there's healthcare issues on the line as well. Like I said, there's document issues. Do you have any kind of opposition to any of those things or any questions?
Um, so I'm largely not in opposition. Um, when it comes to kids, I worry. I tend to the way my political thinking is expressed is like I by gut reaction I tend to lean right or like a conservative minded person. Um, but usually once I think about it more, I tend to lean left. Um, but you know, I I just want whatever's best for kids, um, and for people who you know are good at doing their job are able to help kids get health care. So
Yeah, definitely. I'm on the same page there.
I don't think that it as far as like what I know, which is very little um, about the situation. Trans people are real. It's like a thing that people experience, and that it shouldn't be, another thing by which we treat each other differently, um, specifically with regards to rights, especially. Um, but yeah, so that the reason I called in was I hear a lot of talk. There's a lot of noise about in the political world, and so like it's hard to really keep track of what's really going on, um, especially with
Yeah.
these sorts of hot
Yeah.
button issues. Specifically, I think the trans issue has suffers from a lot of mis and disinformation.
Yeah, and
So
I would
it's just hard to
I
tell, like what the
and
fuck is going on.
I would just encourage you, if you are interested in like seeing kind of the disproportionate attack on trans rights. I mean, disproportionate is not even the correct choice of words. The attack on trans rights
Right.
across the
Yeah.
country. There's a website called translegislation.com. You can just type that into your
Okay.
browser, and it will show you a tracker of not just all of the bills that are currently being considered in the United States, but all of the bills that were introduced and passed over the last several years. And you can just see, you can literally see the spike in just the attack on trans people just being able to exist in this country, um, just from sheer numbers alone. And then it allows you to kind of go through and look at what is being discussed. It's a useful website, a useful resource that you might find illuminating.
Yeah. With
So
that, no,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you.
No, no, I was what did you want to say, Darwin?
Oh, I was just going to say, uh, thanks for taking my call, and I'll probably call in again, if
Hell yeah.
given the opportunity. And I, I tend to call into these shows, largely in agreement. It seems like what you guys, for the most part, are saying makes sense. Um, not just on the Transatlantic show, but just the Line Network, broad. I largely agree with the message. But I just have questions, just like anybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
no, and
absolutely.
I appreciate I
I think
appreciate you
I think
calling in and I appreciate you engaging inquisitively and listening to what we have to say. And uh, so even though you had some questions that maybe other people don't have, you
right.
you came here to ask them and you weren't combative about it. And I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and curiosity
Uh,
will take you
thanks
far.
so much. Yeah. No. So like well, that's another reason I call in is I like having these kinds of conversations where we ask each other questions. We don't just like um rhetorically vomit on each other. You know.
Mhm.
Like I get
Yeah.
it. It's impressive. You know what your side thinks in a verbally affluent way. Um, and then that stuff is entertaining to watch. Don't get me wrong. And it does get conversations started amongst a lot of people.
Mhm.
But I'm looking for like the more nuanced positions a lot of the times, and because I've been engaging in these kinds of conversations about like what is right and on religion or politics, etc. for a long time now, and
Mm.
yeah, it's getting a little dry out there. So I'm very thankful to have been given the opportunity to talk to you guys today, and I'll definitely do my homework on those resources you provided. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate you
Thanks for
calling
your
in.
call. Have a great day. All right. Are you able to see the calling queue? I know we got a few in
Yeah.
there now. If you see any that look interesting to you, we can go with that one.
Let's see. I think like I'd take Joseph or Dale.
Okay. Let's go with Dale. Pronouns they, any from Virginia. Dale, you are live
Hello.
on the line with Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. What do you want to talk about today?
Howdy.
Hiya. So I'm agender, recently determined, and I'm struggling. Well, like many non-queer people, I struggle still with separating sex and gender for myself and for others, and this saddens me and frustrates me. And a lot of it is conditioning. Um, but then, within queer culture, you still have people with strong gender expression, like I am confidently female, I am confidently male, I'm confidently non-binary. And even I find non-binary people have, at least that I have interpreted, perhaps incorrectly, a specific vibe and aesthetic. Like I've rooted in my brain, unfortunately, that non-binary means assigned female at birth, perhaps a little bit of HRT, and like mask presenting, and like neutral colors and or wacky clothes, but like very very little assigned male at birth, non-binary representation. And I don't know, I'm just confused as heck right now trying to figure all this stuff out.
I definitely see where you're coming from with the fact that there is not a lot of good representation for the full spectrum of non-binary identities. And that's something that our community can definitely work on for sure. I think I know this would be a great conversation for Lux when it's on, but I know some of that description, I know Lux does not fit. So that might be something you should call it about at some point in the future as well. Um, but Riverboat Jack, did you want to jump in on this one?
I mean, I think that one, of course, there are folks who, assign male at birth who come out as non-binary. I know several personally. And I would just say there's likely some degree of like patriarchy uh, confining a lot of the identity of folks who are assigned male at birth, and like
Hmm.
it's hard to buck that. Like I would say that non-binary is actually like quite a huge spectrum when you really start digging into it. There are a lot of different folks who, combine different sorts of typically masculine or feminine, or again, neither traits, to kind of come up with their own unique gender expression. And I think that's really cool. And I think it's great that there's space for folks like you who kind of vibe with none of that and want to go do your own thing, and I just think that let's not be too hasty to like throw all non-binary people into the same pot, because I feel like I I feel like trans femmes, trans masks, like those can be like a little bit more distinct because we know kind of what that is signifying, generally speaking. But like non-binary folks, like they're out there doing all kinds of stuff, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I I see them, and I see that they exist and that there's a wide variety of them. I just happen to have encountered a specific example of it in person and in media
I
enough
see.
that my autistic brain, which craves pattern recognition and craves
Yeah.
consistency, is like, there's something to grab onto, you know, and then subsequently for myself, if I'm desperate for people to not think I'm a straight man. Like that's my whole thing. And as whatever way I can do that effectively has been my journey thus far. And that is extremely non-specific and unhelpful. There are quite a few things that are not straight male. But before I even got into all of this, well, I guess I should say first that back in like the 2016 to 17 anti-feminist era of YouTube, I was one of the I was like on the precipice of what was going to eventually be the right-wing pipeline. In its embryonic stages, I almost fell in. And so that still, the damage from that is still so real, and I'm still undoing so many of the. It was just such an impressionable time for a young brain, and I just got all the wrong ideas, and so that's the foundation that I'm starting from, despite having left-leaning parents. But when I have my main friend group here is mostly queer cis women, and I felt like I was invading their space as somebody assigned male at birth. I felt like because men suck so much, and the frustration with wanting a space free from them, and then them getting all pissy, like, well, I'm going to make a male only space. Let's see how you think about that. There's just all this stuff swirling around in my head, in that regard.
Well, I guess I would say, just as your gender identity is not your sex, um, so too is like that alone should kind of signify that that's not the same thing, right? Like there's not a connection there necessarily, right?
Right.
And so
It's
like as you like delve more into this, um you might be seeing like certain patterns, but kind of recognizing that like those patterns are limited by your social experiences and social circles, and like aren't necessarily representative of like the wider communities that exist out there. Maybe that'd be helpful.
Yes. My community that I have is very loving and accepting of my non-binariness, and are very encouraging. So it's not, there is of course a lack of exposure to all the different kinds of communities, but for the one that I do have access to, it is a lovely one, and all of the conflict is within my own head,
I see.
as they have been careful to reassure me of, which I am so very very grateful for. Um, it truly is. I just don't know exactly how to present. That's my big issue. Is that I want people to not assume, because we're still in a social era of assumption, of gender, and not only do I want to solve that, but I also want to let go of it, and I want to be unbothered by it, because for all the non-passing queer people out there, it's that's just their reality, and it's about how they feel. But I
Well,
don't
what?
feel anything from presenting as anything, so I don't know where to go.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to wear?
I have no idea. That's my
Like when
big thing. I know that I don't want to make a strong gendered statement.
maybe it's worth spending effort in like thinking about what you want rather than what you don't want, because I think embracing what you want is going to ultimately yield you better results in the direction that you are trying to go, right? Like otherwise you're just
Hmm.
trying to play a guessing game based on a bunch of assumptions of like an intended audience that may or may not exist in the first place.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just that I'm so unclear as to what I specifically want. You know, I mean, the example I'll give is wearing femme clothes, like, and again, in a very loving and accepting space. It's not that I have anything against presenting femme, but it feels exactly like presenting math, where it's
Yeah.
I
just
feel
like
like,
this very
yeah, I
clearly a
feel like
construct.
maybe, yeah, no, I feel like maybe there's too much emphasis of the gender expression or the particular association with certain types of clothing. And maybe that's something that we need to back up from a little bit. Like maybe instead of focusing so hard on is this femme or mask, think of it as like different categories of aesthetic. Like think about, oh, is this more of like I don't know, just I'm not good with style, but is this like metalhead style? Is this like tradwife style? I guess that's a bit more gendered. Is this more like out
Goth.
in the woods type thing? Is it like city person? I don't know. Like you have different things that you can think of. What is the style that I'm wearing, and not this is a feminine style or this is a masculine one? Because I think you're trying to break away from this pattern. And I know it's very natural to fall into pattern seeking behaviors. We're very, very good at that. And there's this delicate balance that we play. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing here too, but with less guidance. This idea that you don't want to have to play the game of the broader system. You don't want to opt in to having to chase what is acceptably masculine or feminine so that you're seen in a certain way. Like you don't want to have to do that, but I feel like there's a sense that you kind of have to in order to break away from being lumped into those categories. But I think in doing that, it may be causing some further frustration. And so maybe and people are going to assume what they want, and some people are going to assume that you're a cis het man, and some people are going to assume that you're gay, and some people are made it assume that you're a woman, and like people are going to have completely different ideas of who they think you are, and it's going to be impossible to chase down every one of those and prevent people from thinking the wrong thing. So I think, like Jack was saying, focus more on the things that make you feel at ease, even if you don't feel euphoria from any of them. If you just feel comfortable, if you feel normal, like if you wear something and you say, hey, I could wear this again and feel okay. And you can have your different outfit categories. You can say, okay, in a formal setting, this is what I'm most comfortable wearing. In a casual setting, I'm most comfortable wearing this. And maybe just detach the gender association with it and lean on just the style. I think that might help a little bit.
I appreciate that. You're right that I am putting too much emphasis on, is it mask or is it, even as I was describing the stereotype of non-binary people that's formed in my head, I was saying that, they have more mask presenting clothing. Like, what does that even mean? It ultimately is constructs. What I'm comfortable with, like, I don't need, yeah, I mean, I gotta pursue that. I gotta figure out what that is. I mean, so far it's just sweatpants and a t-shirt. I mean, formal,
Hey,
informal, who
that's a
cares?
style.
Like, that's what
Yeah.
I've worn. And it is very, very neutral. But as I navigate queer culture, as I make queer friends, I find myself pretty much the only one who doesn't relate to the way they go about presenting and the way that they feel about this stuff. And I know that we all exist in our different forms. It's just alienating.
Yeah, and
especially amongst those that I feel closest to.
And maybe starting out with the style that you default to and figuring out, hey, how do I elevate this? What do I do to like add to this in ways that I feel comfortable doing? And like experimenting from there can be really freeing, I think. And like if you find yourself gravitating towards a certain aesthetic kind of culture, that can also maybe be like a category that you can substitute for
Right.
the current ones that you're juggling and finding not a lot of success with.
Yeah, and with that too, like you could, if you wear certain things that connect you with other people, like kind of going along with that. If you wear the shirt of a sports team that you like, if you wear the shirt of a band that you like, if you wear that kind of stuff that someone's gonna ask you, like, hey, did you see that band? I like that band too. That kind of thing. And then it doesn't need to be gendered. It's just, hey, I like this thing. Other people also like this thing, and we can like this thing at the same time. So maybe you go in that direction too.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I just need to escape the binary. That broadly
hard.
that applies to that applies to pretty much all of it. Hilarious to think that I used to rally against this as a dumb teenager.
I mean,
I really
the
I really
call of the
appreciate all.
category is strong.
Yeah.
Sorry?
The call of categories like that, it can be a really, really strong one, and some people never escape it. So good on you for doing the work and figuring yourself out.
Yeah. Doing the best I can.
Sounds like it's a struggle. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so much more painful than I would have ever imagined.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Hell yeah.
Well, I really
Anything
appreciate
else we
you
can
guys
help you
taking my
with?
call. I think that's about it. I got a lot to think about.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in, and definitely give us some updates if you learn some more about yourself and want to share.
Thank you. What was that show that you said they'd be on? They'd be great to talk to about that. What was that one?
Oh, it's our show, this show, but Lux is the host, Luxander or Lux. It's on not next week. I actually have the calendar pulled up at the end of the month, so the 26th. If you want to call back in and get a non-binary perspective, I highly recommend it.
Bet. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your call.
You guys as well. Cheerio.
Bye.
Hey. So much wholesomeness today.
It's very wholesome. I'm a little taken aback, but you know what? I'm here for it.
And I got all the chat probably judging me for my lack of knowledge of aesthetics and style. Hey,
I think you did great.
I rock the dad look. Like I honestly just wear whatever is comfortable for me because I'm lazy. That's my aesthetic is lazy.
And also, I wasn't kidding. Like there are ways you can like elevate like a sweatpants style and like a t-shirt, sweatpants and t-shirts into like cool outfits. Like you can make an entire vibe off of like comfy pants and shirt, the whole thing.
Right. It's funny too because when I started my transition, of course, like everyone has the visions of being the super sexy person that they want to be. I'm not saying that I'm not sexy, but it's like you feel like you want to put all this effort into your aesthetic and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be one of those like bland like white guys that reminds me of my dad, and then I end up being like, you know what, I like the dad vibe. Let's just go with it. So all right, I think I'll just take some of these in order since you
Yeah.
said the next one it looks pretty interesting too. I'm actually excited for this one. I think it's fun to sometimes get into the nitty-gritty nuance of gender as a concept. So let's talk with Joseph, he, him from Utah. Joseph, you are live on the line with Ben and Riverboat Jack. It sounds like you want to talk about gender as a concept and gender abolition. Lay it on us.
Yeah, yeah. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. How about you?
Good, good, good. Those last two calls were pretty awesome, actually. I love those. Those were great. Which
you
is
got
funny
for
because
us?
the last call actually, I feel like, really perfectly segues into this. Maybe with a different perspective, just because I'm, a cis straight person. So I may have some limitations to my perspective here, but I'm also trying to figure out how to formulate this correctly. But it seems like when we're trying to liberate ourselves from the boundaries that we used to be confined in with gender concepts, that we've ended up sort of accepting the original premise of those concepts, and use those to move forward with that progress, if that makes sense. So like with masculine and feminine concepts, like masculine and feminine are descriptions of characteristics of people or of like personalities, right? That are sort of confined to a binary. And when I think about what that binary is or what roots it, it always seems to come back to the same binary of, oh, do you have a dick or a vagina, right? And so I wonder if, I guess we're kind of spinning our wheels with progress with this unless we're trying to abolish the concepts of gender in the first place. That, look, you have what you have biologically, and then, that's really only relevant to the doctor and stuff, and maybe the psychologist and stuff too. But at that point, none of the rest of it should matter. Like, you can present how you want to present, and that can or cannot be masculine or feminine, or it can be anything in between. It doesn't really matter, right? Like, I guess it sort of seems like, I don't know, a lot of the conversations that we have around the topic are kind of spinning the wheels around what really needs to move things forward. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would call myself a gender abolitionist. Like in an ideal world, like if we were in a society that would support gender abolition, I would be 100% in favor. Like I think really gender identity is important, like having that for you and really only you, like gender existing as a concept for you to feel like yourself, and for you to express yourself to other people. I really think that's what it should be, and that anything else in society should not matter. Like it's just be individuals doing individual things. Um, So I agree with you. The thing is, I think that we live in a world that would have a really hard time getting there. So it's a case where I don't really argue it a whole lot because it does, like, there's a lot of risk of futility with that discussion.
Okay.
Um,
Can I
but
ask
I
like
absolutely, I
why you
100%
think?
see your point. What
Can
was
I
that?
ask why you think it's sort of more of a lost cause, at least to convince people that look, gender to the extent that it exists at all as a concept is kind of irrelevant to the most important things in your life, like how much, like whether you're getting good wages or getting health care, right?
Yeah,
Can
I
I
think it's
can I
not
s-
impossible. Yeah,
can I step
jump
in real
in.
quick?
Yeah.
I think that it is pretty, how do I put this? I think that we can have both a gender abolitionist view of like, yeah, like essentially gender is a social construct. We can do with it what we want. Like it doesn't, it, ultimately, like it is malleable. Like, but
Yeah.
also I think what we're really railing against isn't necessarily even the concept of identifying with certain identities. What we're really against is the prescriptive notion of gender that has been imposed upon our society. You know, like the idea
Yeah.
that because you are a man, you have to behave in XYZ ways. Because you're a woman, you have to
Right.
behave in XYZ ways, etc. And I think right now, just as a society, what we're in the middle of doing isn't necessarily um, counter to gender abolition. I think it is, in fact, a really important step to get to gender abolition, where we're making the argument that, in fact, we can begin to decouple these things from like a biological essentialist view of the world. And the
Yeah.
words we might use might remain the same, but we're starting to move away from these prescriptive notions of gender identity that have, for a very, very long time, dominated society. Um, and I think that that moves
Mhm.
us towards gender abolition.
Yeah, and I would agree too. I guess, like, for some reason specifically, I always remember a lot of conversations that Forrest Falcai has with people very confused about, you know, what gender and sex are, and it seems that some of these smarter ones within those end up realizing, okay, well, what are our concepts of gender based on, even though they are social constructs, and they end up, you know, thinking, oh, well, because they are based on our binary idea, or the binary of sex, even though you can have both at the same time, you know, they end up sort of drawing that to, okay, well, then there is a basis for it, and it's what I'm saying, but it it seems like they get lost. They lose the forest for the trees, if that makes sense. When
Yeah,
really,
and
like,
yeah.
okay, look, it's somebody's gender expression is more about like their ideas of themselves that are the most healthy for them and the most healthy for their interactions and things like that. And really, if you just care about that person, you just respect that. But and beyond that, it's like, okay, their doctor is the only person that needs to know what's between their legs ultimately. And other than that, like, the rest does not matter. I guess I don't know. I don't know if I'm sounding correct here or a little off.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because, like, the reason why I think that it's kind of a stretch to try to achieve gender abolition, like, I'm not saying it's impossible. I think it's possible eventually, but it's, I would say it is impossible within our lifetime, unless by some miracle we end up living for a few hundred years. But like, because the concept of gender, like, we already have such a difficult time walking people through the difference between sex and gender, and definitely a lot of that is the root of how we got to the concepts of gender hierarchy and doing gender
That's what I'm saying,
like
right?
within a society. And so it's like there's a lot of this baggage that you'd need to unpack. And so even if you get people to start agreeing that the concept of gender is just kind of ridiculous, you still have those underlying biases that are going to influence people's opinion. And something that I worry about kind of getting lost in the sauce here is even if we got rid of some of these labels and things, we would still be dealing with misogyny. We'd still be dealing with
Yeah.
inequity in our society because that underlying bias is still there. Like even if we say, "Oh, I don't discriminate because I don't
It's part of my
like I don't
worry
think there's
too.
gender,"
Like,
but then still chooses to hire people who present masculine, pay them more, all that. Like there's still a gender difference, even if we don't chalk that up to a gender difference. Like the assumptions are still going to
right.
be there. And so I think we'd have to unpack a lot of that as a society, and we'd have to undo our entire system. Like and have another generation that doesn't have like a shred of that knowledge in them for something like a full gender abolition to work.
I guess that kind of makes sense. I it and maybe it's just from my experience of gender, thinking of it of just characteristics that normally we would assign as feminine or masculine, and I've never thought of myself as less masculine because I am attracted to a lower voice or something like that, right? And so it just makes me wonder what if we're getting too far into the weeds with things like that, rather than like fact that, like you said, misogyny is still happening, and the taking of rights to healthcare for trans people is still happening, when ultimately none of the arguments around that are contingent on I guess gender in the first place. Really, it's just really ultimately contingent on what humans deserve because you're a human, right?
I think there's another factor we're missing here in the fact that a lot of these people making these disingenuous arguments are legitimately just disingenuous people.
True.
Like we
Yeah.
have people that just blatantly disregard the concept of respect. And I think that's like as people who are genuinely wanting to make positive change, uh, I think it would be easier to convince, but then it's like people in our government right now clearly do not care about respecting people. Like that's not on their agenda. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I would just throw in there like the project of dismantling misogyny it's going to be a long-term one, and it will likely outlive all of us. But like what we're doing right now, decoupling kind of this gender sex essentialist argument about how like what men are, what women are, that's an important part of the step to get there, I think. Like I think
Mhm.
we are all engaged right now in a pretty important work to like undo these prescriptive notions of what men, women, and like
Yeah.
I imagine there are other like not non-binary folks are potentially developing their own prescriptive notions of what that means. But I think
Right.
undoing these
That's one
notions
thing
is
I've
like
always
the
wondered
work of our
too,
time.
is because if I really think about it, I would identify as non-binary because of my ideas with gender abolition, I guess. But I would present, completely cis heterosexual, man.
Mhm.
Well, if you saw me walking down the street, right? And so I guess I don't know. It makes it. I'm ultimately of the opinion that most of our problems exist either when it comes to misogyny or when it comes to racism or when it comes to discrimination of pretty much all kinds of any minority. Ultimately, comes down to the fact that we live in a system that requires so much profiteering that it needs those as scapegoats. And so I was ultimately surprised that trans people became such a massive scapegoat for the right when there's such a small portion of of society and affects literally nobody else's lives. But I think ultimately those things are always going to have an incentive to exist and to be maintained by a lot of money and power until we dismantle the portion that incentivizes those things to exist, which is really just capital. The people who
Hell
understand that
yeah.
strife is going to increase, and they have to mitigate that by pointing to this group or that group and spin a big story about how they're actually your problem.
Hell yeah, comrade.
Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, you're doing some great work. I think we largely agree. I think where we disagree is just the steps to getting where we need to go, and how we prioritize those steps. So
I gotcha. Because I guess I would prioritize the dismantling of that structure first, and then the things, all the civil rights are going to follow more easily after that, because that's the thing sort of preventing them for the most part in the first place, in my opinion. But I guess you hold the opinion that dismantling some of those structures first and I guess to some degree I might agree that dismantling those structures first would be the best way to get there in some cases, but
well, and we might need a little bit of both at the same time. Yeah, we might need a little bit of both at the same time. Like, I think it's okay to approach the issue from multiple sides, as long as we're working towards the same goal and we're not hurting each other's progress along the way. So, I mean, there are probably some people who would be more receptive to just going straight to a gender abolition approach, and other people might not be. So, this is a case where a difference of opinion, I don't think, derails us from the cause. I think this is one of those more nuanced discussions of how do we get from point A to point Z, and we can have different thoughts and opinions along the way, and kind of hash that out as we go, and we can go on different paths as well, and meet somewhere at the end. So you're doing some good work, Joseph.
Thank you. And I guess maybe on a smaller, maybe more personal point, I guess what would you guys describe me as? Because I mean, I
don't know.
Like gender is a vacuous concept. I kind of feel like I'm agender. Does that sound like that is accurate, or would you say no?
I mean, it sounds to me like if you are inclined to identify as non-binary or agender, like that's really, you can still present like as mask as you want. like you can identify how you want to identify. And I would just throw out there, most cis men aren't out there wondering if they're non-binary or agender.
That is true.
Yeah.
I guess I wonder about everything, and so but yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
That was fun.
There we go. Let's take it a second. Yeah, that was super fun. I love discussions like that. All right. Any of these look good to you, or we can go in order, whatever your preference is fine with me.
What about I'm not sure what the etiquette is about referring to folks in the queue.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll just say the numbers, like, because I know there's two sets of numbers. But either whatever number you say, I should not the phone number. Don't read out the phone number, but
yeah, no. 21.
Yep. Sounds great. Let's talk to Sam. They, them from Arizona. Sam, you are live on the line with Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. What do you want to talk about today?
Hi. So I guess a bit of backstory on the topic. I'm non-binary, and my parents are like kind of transphobic, definitely. And my stepdad gave me this book called Binary, by Zachary Elliott. Do you know it?
I don't, but that sounds not great.
Yeah,
No,
I am
it's
unfamiliar with
basically
this one.
Oh,
hmm? Sorry.
oh no, I just pulled it up now, and that's my reaction to this. This looks like some propaganda for sure.
Yeah, and I tried to tell him I think it's written by an architect, like that's trying to pretend to be a biologist, basically.
Mhm.
It's weird, but I have been reading through it and trying to like go through all of the citations and all the sources and kind of disprove it scientifically. So I was hoping to just kind of ask some questions about kind of the idea of the sex spectrum.
Yeah, what questions do you have?
Lay it on us.
Okay, cool. All right, so what this guy says is that sex is a binary because even though there are intersex people, he doesn't define sex as based on like chromosomes or anything. He says that sex is the phenotype that produces one of the two gametes.
Yeah, that whole argument is garbage, because what is that? What does that mean? Like, and that this is a technique, or like really, it's a fallacy called moving the goalposts. Have you heard of that before?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially what has happened with this whole argument is they started by saying that sex is about what's in your pants, your anatomy that a doctor saw at birth and said you are a boy, you're a girl. And then once people started pointing out, hey, there are people who aren't easy to figure out, or have their external parts that don't align with their internal parts. And so then they said, okay, well, that argument doesn't work. So, but what about their chromosomes? And then points out that, hey, well, chromosomes don't always line up that way either. And then they'll say, oh, but what about your gametes? And they're like, okay, well, not everybody has gametes. So then what do you do with those people? And then so finally they've landed on, no, it's the body type that's organized around producing certain gametes. So they don't, the thing is they can't pinpoint one factor that is consistent for everybody who is a man and everybody who is a woman, based on biological characteristics. And so moving the goalpost, they have to constantly come up with new ways to define what they mean, because none of them actually prove their point. And one of the arguments that Katie Montgomery would give very frequently, which I have stolen because I love it, is if you're going to define what a chair is, like there's no concise or like really good way to define a chair that includes all chairs and excludes all non-chairs. So that's the same thing with this. Like you kind of have to point to one particular characteristic that locks you in to this binary, and that doesn't exist. And so if someone makes the point of a phenotype organized around certain gametes, what parts of the phenotype do they mean? Because that sends us right back into the anatomical argument. This all goes in a giant circle because all of these are different variables that all feed in together to give different combinations of effects. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
And I pointed this out with an earlier caller, but I would just point out, going to the author of that book's social media, he's bringing up Imane Khalif, and it becomes very apparent just from like the first post that this idea that you can separate people by this kind of bullshit categorization is just a way for him to launder his transphobia. Like, he's like, well, Amane Khalif has a Y chromosome, so that means he, and it's just like, Amane Khalif is a woman. Like, she was raised her entire life as a woman, and like, this is just a way where you can be like, oh, you have a rare genetic condition. Well, guess what? You're trans now, except in a transphobic way. Like, that's like the exact argument that they're making whenever they default to these kinds of biological essentialism.
Yeah, definitely. The whole discussion around Imane Khalif right now is pissing me off because it's really frustrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other questions do you have?
Yeah.
I was also wondering, so in a lot of, I think, videos just like on the line in general around sex and gender, I think you guys mentioned like there's a biological consensus that sex and gender are two separate things and that sex is on a spectrum. And I was kind of wondering, like, is there any way to kind of prove a biological, like a scientific consensus?
It's not something necessarily that you prove. I mean, the ideas of the consensus are things that largely have been proven. But to prove whether or not there is a consensus maybe is a bit more difficult to do. But something that is a tactic kind of these kinds of authors and also a tactic of the current administration is this idea that if you have an expert that contradicts the consensus, then that is equally like that person can go toe to toe with the consensus and debunk the consensus, which is not true because the consensus isn't from one person. It is the collective opinion of like the majority of the expert board of a particular field. And so in order to really arrive at the consensus, there are mountains and mountains and mountains of studies that kind of support what ends up being the consensus. So it's kind of a lot of an undertaking to scrub through every single thing that kind of leads to that. But I think if you're looking for what is a particular consensus or what are people saying, there are certain expert boards like that you can go to their websites and see what they collectively say about the issue. For example, if we're talking about medical related issues, any of the medical boards, so like the AAFP, which is the American Academy of Family Physicians, there's the ACP, which is for internal medicine, there's like pediatrics, like they have their own journals and their own statements that they put out publicly. I'm sure people that write biology textbooks and that whole community has a similar thing that you can look up. It may take some clever Googling to find those resources specifically, but they're out there if you look for them.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
What else can we help you with?
Yeah, lay it on us.
Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, there's something kind of more off topic around like hormone therapy.
Okay.
That I'm wondering about. So I feel like there's a lot of kind of fear mongering around hormone therapy and the effects that it has. But I also know that like with any medical treatment, there could be side effects and things like that. So I guess what would you say about the effects that hormone therapy could have on a person and like the risks that come with it?
As it depends on what hormones you're taking. It depends on what age you are when you're taking them. Kind of the big risks, like if we divide the medications into a couple different categories, there are puberty blockers, which are not hormone therapy. That's a separate discussion from masculinizing or feminizing hormone therapy. And so a lot of the more irreversible side effects are more present with masculinizing hormone therapy than they are with feminizing hormone therapy. Because if you think about what does it mean to go through a testosterone dominant puberty, right? Those are a lot of the side effects, if you will, of that trans women experience after if they go through their own endogenous puberty, and they have a difficult and often painful time trying to counteract some of those things. So things like voice changes, face structure changes, like height changes really don't happen as an adult. But if you start in adolescence, then you might get changes in your height, that kind of thing. And those are like even hair growth is not completely irreversible, but once you start growing a significant amount of hair, it can be difficult to dial that back. So that's not entirely reversible. Whereas some of the side effects, like fat redistribution, is largely reversible, which you're going to get with both testosterone and estrogen. Things like skin softening, that's going to be pretty reversible. So a lot of the estrogen effects and progesterone effects and stuff are fairly reversible. One of the bigger concerns, depending on when you start taking these things too, is kind of risks for fertility that we don't we don't know for sure is like a universal risk, but maybe a risk for certain people, especially people who take testosterone. If you, because you only have so many ova that you can produce, and so there's some risk that once your ovaries kind of atrophy, as the case with a lot of people who are on long-term testosterone therapy, there are some concerns of fertility preservation. And I think that's one of the bigger ones that I talk with patients about before they decide to go on these therapies. So does that kind of help?
Yes, it kind of more so when I like kind of talked about going on HRT. My mom brought up an example of someone that she knew that, which like obviously that's anecdotal, but she said like they started to transition medically and then they started to detransition and then they ended up getting cancer and just like having basically medical issues for the rest of their. I don't know if that's like a widespread thing where like
Yeah, so cancer is not caused by hormone therapy. That is a myth. So if a
okay.
person got cancer after having hormone therapy, you have to think like correlation versus causation thing. Just because something happened before the event does not mean that that thing caused the event. So you have to wonder, does that person have risk factors for cancer? And there is something to think about with breast cancer risk. Like if you already have breast cancer and you have a type that is responsive to estrogen or progesterone, that would be a reason to not take those medications. But that's, again, where medical evaluation comes into play. So somebody who already has a cancer diagnosis might not be given those types of therapies, or they might have extra discussion about informed consent with taking that. But will it cause you to have cancer if you don't already? No, it's not going to do that.
And it's also worth pointing out that like cisgender people also take testosterone and estrogen in various circumstances, and by and large, unless they're doping for weightlifting or something like that, aren't experiencing some of the more fear mongered about effects. Like if you're taking way above the recommended dosage of just about anything, you're gonna run into some weird effects. And but for the purposes of transition, by and large, again, especially with doctor supervision, it's pretty safe.
Yeah, and even that, if someone starts to transition and doesn't like the effects, like I said, a lot of the outcomes of feminizing transition are like largely reversible. Even something like breast growth, you can get a breast reduction or a mastectomy. You can still do that. We do that for cis boys who have gynecomastia. So
Mhm.
that's something we can do. But on the testosterone side, let's say you start testosterone and then a few weeks later you decide you don't want to do it anymore. You're not going to have some of these big changes right away for most people. Like even voice changes are going to take months to set in. Kind of the first thing that really starts to happen is like body hair growth, which everybody has body hair, or at least most people have body hair. So like whether you have more arm or leg hair or whatever, you can it's like there's not much to say like there's some people who are cis that just have higher amounts of body hair. So that shouldn't really even be a worrying factor. So if somebody started testosterone and then stopped like within a few weeks, like they're probably not going to really experience a whole lot of effects in general.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That helps a lot.
And it's also worth noting that generally speaking, anyone who goes on HRT is getting like routine blood work done to look for any kind of warning signs that something might be amiss in their endocrine system. So like it's
Yep.
it is not what folks fearmonger about.
Yeah, because that makes sense. Just like with any kind of treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and so it's worth having the discussion. Like if you're interested in that, at least sitting down and getting a consult, and then you can see if it's something you want to do or if you don't want to do. So that's the beautiful thing about informed consent is being able to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Then I had one last thing about like the sex spectrum and like the sex binary. And so at a certain point he discusses how intersex people are getting like surgeries done on them as infants. And he very briefly discusses and says that the idea of the sex spectrum would lead to more of those instances happening and would lead to more of that
No.
environment, which which I disagree with, because if we think of sex as binary, then anybody that has like anything outside of typical male or typical female, like just genitalia at birth, doctors and parents will want them to conform more to this idea of the binary.
Yep.
Yeah,
and we're seeing less. Yeah, we're seeing less of those procedures now. Now that there's more of a movement for bodily autonomy and saying, hey, you can let that child wait until they can make their own decision of if they want that procedure. Like there's very few conditions where you have to do something at birth, and that's where if it's dangerous. But in those cases, you correct the dangerous part, and then you leave the rest for when the child can consent.
Right. Yeah. But a lot of it was just like appearance.
Yeah.
And like I like the most charitable towards that position you can be is that sex is a bimodal spectrum, like that it's a different kind of spectrum that tends to clump up in two groups, but that's not representative of where sex is for all people.
Right. And he kind of tries to say that, because he talks about the bimodal kind of distribution idea of the sex, and he tries to say that like sex spectrum theorists are trying to like separate sex into the phenotype and the karyotype and just like all of these different factors when it's just this one thing. And so like I
Yeah.
guess that's just a misunderstanding of what sex is biologically. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're correct on that.
You're nailing it.
Well, with that, I wish we could have more discussion. We do have to move on before the end of the show. But if you have any more questions, definitely call back in next week and we can address some more of these for you.
Awesome. No, I think you helped so much. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, Sam.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. We only have time for one of these two callers. Which one?
You pick. I feel like I've been picking.
So Rebecca, call back in next week. I apologize that we didn't get to you. But I think our other caller has something a bit more.
Yeah, and before we jump into
politically
that
relevant,
caller,
so.
I just want to say to Rebecca, because you should be able to hear me, if you give our screener a note, let her know you hung out really long and you didn't get taken last time. Even if there's multiple advice calls or anything like that, we would be happy to put you through to make sure you get taken. So sorry for the wait, but thank you. We have to, unfortunately, we don't have time.
All right, let's talk to Spectra, her from New York. Spectra, you are live on the line with Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. What would you like to talk about today?
Thank you. Can you guys hear me, just to be clear?
Yes, we can hear you.
First of all, I want to apologize to Rebecca. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. So basically, first of all, I want to thank you all, Dr. Ben, Lux, Jack, like you guys. So like I came out at my workplace, especially my employer, last week. And basically, my colleagues are also nice with it. So like it's been really great and affirming because I live in a blue state. But the thing is, I am a legal immigrant. And so I seriously don't know what I do in longer run. But I thought let's take step by step. I have been on HRT for over a year. And so basically when I came out, my employer said when I told my employer that I've been on HRT for around over a year, she was like very affirming and all. But so basically I come from a conservative country and my mom's an RN. So when I told my mom what happened is like she said like they love me and all, and they said like they accept me, but don't take any hormones, don't get any surgeries done, don't tell to anyone, and we love you. And I was like, well, okay, that is weird, but like I see where they're coming from, but at the same time I was like, I don't feel like myself. And so since my mom's an RN, she sent me research after research about how gender affirming care and hormone therapy can cause, like, put people on increased risk of cancer or basically the dissatisfaction rate and all. And so, like, she was discouraging me to start HRT. But I think here in New York, it's really nice. And it's not New York City. I don't want to say too much, but it's not New York City, but it's the state of the New York. So here with informed consent, thankfully, as an adult, you can start hormone therapy, and shout out to Planned Parenthood of New York. And like these folks here are really helpful and understanding. And I started hormone therapy over a year ago. And now, like, my workplace is also fine. But it's just that I'm not sure where things will go from immigration perspective. I don't go to Canada anymore because I feel like if I go to Canada, even though I have a visa, but it's like I don't want to be harassed at the border, especially since Trump won. So like when I immigrated, Biden was president, and I was like, okay, America is much more liberal and better country, and I would be able to be myself. And now it's funny because I started hormone therapy the day Trump won. Like I started to think about it because even though I was thinking about it, but like I got my first appointment because I was like, I have to be myself. Let's see what Trump's do. Let's see what my parents do. But like, I have to. I'm so sorry if I am speaking too much, and
you're fine.
I'm so sorry.
Do you have any
But it's like,
specific concerns that you want to run by us? I know I'm not an immigrant, so I don't know that particular side of what you're going through. I know this is a really, really rough time in the US at the moment. Is there anything specific that we can help you with on this front?
so I don't know, but yeah. So I was in touch with few immigration attorneys. They didn't have anything much to say either because like they don't encounter my case very often. But I just wanted to point out about people who are like before I came out, people used to be like very mean about my voice. Like they used to say you sound like a girl or you sound like a gay or like stuff like that. And that was before while I was in the closet. And now after I come out and it's the exact same voice. And suddenly people are like, you sound like a man. Why do you sound like a boy and stuff like? So it's very like strange for me. Like when I was guy presenting, the same people used to say I sound like a girl. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels oftentimes like we are put in unwinnable situations where no matter how we try to make ourselves more palatable to folks, they still like if they're not going to attack you from that way, they're going to attack you from the other one. And ultimately I've experienced similar things, similar attacks in that way. And it's one of those things where at the very least I can be at peace with myself and my identity when they're attacking me, unlike before when I was not at peace with myself and my identity prior to my transition. And so hopefully you find a little bit of strength in that, as deeply unfair as the circumstances are.
Also,
Yeah.
you guys were discussing about bathroom laws, and I read about a similar case in South Carolina where a trans man was arrested for using female restroom and he was just following the law. And like he was arrested for following the law essentially. And I don't know what to say, like crazy times, I guess. Hopefully all of us would survive through this phase, I think. But I hope, and like you guys are doing a great job. And I listen to you guys and before I was contemplating if I should come out or not. But listening to you guys, I realized that I'm not doing anything wrong. And it is what it is. And I have to be myself unapologetically. So in that sense, you guys gave me, I don't think I have much questions, but it's just like I'm still coming out at my work. I came out on social media around 6 months ago, but at my workplace, I'm still coming out. Like social media as in like not with my, okay, so I have a social media account with my legal name, which have like my friends and family, and like when I'm on Discord and I'm out on Discord, so there are some safe spaces.
I'm sorry to
and some nice
interrupt a
people.
little bit. We have a bit of a time crunch because we have to go over to Jimmy's show after this. I deeply empathize with your situation, and I know it's not easy right now. I hope you're able to find some community, and that the whole situation at least improves a little bit in the near future. But definitely, if something specific comes up that you need advice on, or some situation that you're having trouble handling, feel free to call us back. I think we're gonna have to move
Thank
on to
you.
super chats in a second.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I
much.
just wanted to
Thank you so
conclude
much.
that I have a trans man from Turkey who's my best friend, and like he's also in a similar situation.
That's awesome.
And he's from Turkey, and he's here from Turkey, and he's trans fan. So I hope we'll stay together.
Yeah, that's great that you got some
Thank you.
support. And I hope everything goes well for you.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you.
for your
Have
call.
a great day. And
Thank you so
thanks
much.
for your time, and thanks for taking me.
Absolutely.
Bye. All right. Time for super chats. We are on a bit of a time crunch, so we're gonna zoom through these. And then I know it's like you all need to call earlier in the show, because we were like scrambling for a bit, and then we're down to the wire. So if you call earlier, then we can get more people in. All right, so I'll start with this one because it has my name in it. $5 from William Matz, 1991. Hashtag Team Dr. Ben, give us your best mansplaination on something. Just watch any video on my channel and you will be mansplained too. There you go. Thank you for the vote. Do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. Cliff, thank you very much for the $10 Australian. Hey Jack, so hyped for this. Hashtag Team Justice for Dr. Softhole. Oh boy. So to explain that, that's a joke from my chat that I used to explain AI. I took out my scrunchie out of my hair. I was like, look, this is why AI is dangerous. You empathize with too many things. This is Dr. Softhole. And then I flicked it off screen, and it's like, you're never going to see Dr. Softhole again. She's dead. And they have kept asking about the state of Dr. Softhole ever since. And that's frankly on me for naming it that. But
so that's your team. So your
Yep,
team Dr. Softhole. Okay, got it.
Yes.
I was like, I hope this isn't a nickname for me now, because I did
No.
not consent to that.
No, it's just a meme. I'm sorry.
Welcome to our audience.
Yeah. All right, $5 from Bramley CX. You got me, B. I'm against the Bible because it's boring. Guilty as charged. Hashtag Team Ben. Thank you so much for your super chat. And yes, I agree.
And thank you for the $5 from Glam Pixie. This caller is fucking wild. How are trans people to blame for any of this? I also don't know. So I'm still trying to figure that one out.
This show was a trip from the beginning.
Yeah. Oh boy.
$5 from William Matz, 1991. I've had 5 hours of sleep for 3 days. Hashtag Dr. Ben. What do? I don't know. Maybe don't. Have you tried not? That's the amount of medical advice I can give to individuals on the internet. Thank you for. I'm counting that. That's a vote, right? Yeah. Hashtag.
Yeah.
Thanks
Absolutely.
for the vote.
Thank you for the $5, Joshua Everett 9887. I forced myself to watch my blood being drawn, and it got me over the needle fear pretty quickly. Hashtag Team Riverboat Jack. Hashtag Team Scoundrel of the Mississippi. Mississippi.
The Mississippi.
Not sure what that is.
I don't know either.
Maybe another reference to me. I don't know.
It looks like it. $5 from Bramley CX. If you want to get over a needle phobia, pick up an autoimmune disorder. Hashtag not really advice. Hashtag Team Ben. I mean, fair. You probably get your blood drawn a lot.
Thank you for the $5, Glam Pixie. It's funny, they won't let women compete in Nordic combined skiing at all, but it's about protecting women's sports, right?
Yeah, it's like that. Like, they don't have a division for women and they didn't want to add one because of low interest in the sport. And yeah, so it's like you're gonna fight for women's rights to compete, but then you won't even, like, if that's the case, just cancel all of them. Like,
Yeah.
cancel both of them. Don't just cancel. Don't just not make a women's division because people aren't watching. Uh, 10 is it Australian dollars from
Yeah.
Cliff B2H. Luxender describing agender was a big part of me figuring out I'm agender. My experience is different to you, Dale, but in some ways similar, but I don't get any dis or euphoria. Hashtag Team Justice for Dr. Softhole. Lots of agender people today. Lots of a very non-binary heavy episode for
Yeah.
two binary people.
I mean, it's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah.
I like the non-binary friendos.
Yeah.
Thank you for the $5 from Alia Shana Silverbow. I invented a new word, plagiarism. Hashtag Riverboat Jack. Hashtag, is there a shorter way to vote for Riverboat Jack, or will I always have to write hashtag Team Riverboat Jack? Hashtag. You could probably just do hashtag Team Jack. That's fine.
As long as we understand who the vote is for, then we're all good there.
It has to have a hashtag. That's my own. As long as it's
Yep.
clear who it's for and it's got a hashtag, we're good. But if you send an @ sign or just say team whoever, wrong. Not counted.
So says the word of our God. $5 from
Yes.
Joshua Everett 9887. It's something called Darwin Day today. Thanks, Google. Hashtag Team Riverboat Jack.
Thank you for the $49.99
Wow.
from Infidel 3476. I like the username a lot. Thank you, TACIS, for helping people like me be a little less ignorant. That's really cool of you and appreciated. Thank you so much for the support.
Thank you for your support. All right, $5 from BB Bunny 1982. Jack, you're an amazing addition, but I want to hear you defend. So hashtag Team Ben. That's voting for me because they want to hear you talk more.
You know, if I must.
If you must.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. Wait, am I still in God mode? Oh no, okay. I thought
God
my
is
voice
slacking
was echoing.
off today.
And that was a team ban. I don't think I gave that one right. There we go.
Yeah, we should be tied now.
Sorry, I timed all of that for the expectation that normally we get like about the volume of super chats that we have when we start supers after we start, and that hasn't happened, and so now we're going to be done with supers early. So
okay,
you know, we'll have to vamp a little, but no need to rush. You can answer
after
these
we rush
questions
through
very
things
slowly.
All right. $5 from, is it mine or yours?
I don't think
know
just go for it. Go for it.
Okay. $5 from Captain Alexia. That feeling when you realize the security industry is more accepting than the tower climbing industry, at least in my experience. Hashtag Riverboat Jack.
The tower climbing industry?
I don't know.
I'm
have
intrigued.
no idea.
You aren't familiar with the industry of people who climb towers?
I mean, I'm so like sci-fi and fantasy brained that I'm like that clearly this must be like some kind of like like some kind of video game dungeon. I don't know. Thank you for the $10 super chat, YouTuber Grudge. Jack is great. I'm glad she's on TACIS, but I got a rep for the trans mask team. Hashtag Team Dr. Ben. Fair.
Thank you for the vote.
Fair.
My team always here for me. $10 from Resolute Deicide. Joseph here. Thank you for a fantastic conversation. Just wanted to reiterate Dr. Ben's point about our small differences in strategy contributing to the same victory. Thank you, comrades. Hell yeah. It takes all of us. Thank you so much for your super chat and for your call.
Thank you for the $10 from Beakers Squeakers. Missed the show today, but squeaked by just in time to drop off my weekly tithe. Hashtag Team Riverboat Goddess. Ooh, I like that.
Ooh.
Paying due deference. I appreciate.
$5 from William Matz 1991. Was told to send super by she who rules over all. So hashtag Team Riverboat Baddie.
I'll take it.
Yes, send your supers.
I love the voice.
Thank you for the $5 from Mellotone Ale. Pronounced like the Lady Gaga song Ale? Ale?
Yes.
Mellotone Ale.
Yeah.
Ale.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I read it and then I read the pronunciation instructions. I'm so sorry. Mellotone Ale. Hashtag Team RBJ because I'm still jelly of her gorgeous hair. I appreciate that. Thank you.
$5 from Miranda Rensberger. Ben, you're one of my favorite people of YouTube, and I love watching you do silly improv. So hashtag Riverboat Jack. Thank you, Miranda. Miranda follows me around everywhere on the internet, in a positive way, not in a creepy way, in a supporter way. So thank you, Miranda. And yeah, that gorgeous hair. How can you argue with that?
I had to let it down. It's super messy. But thank you for the $5 from BB Bunny 1982.
Thank you for the super chat. $5 from Joshua Everett. Vamping or more money? Hashtag whoever is behind at this point. Tie it up. Well, I don't think you're gonna tie it up there with that. But thank you for the contribution.
Thank you for the $5, Captain Alexia. I climbed cell towers for 2 years. Oh, that's so cool. Hashtag Team Ben.
Not all of us thinking like a castle tower.
Yeah. leading the charge to break the siege.
$5 from William Matz 1991. Fuck. I'm just gonna say this as fuck, guys. I feel like this is to dodge the censor. Hashtag Team Heads or Tails is followed. If not, hashtag Team RBJ.
If allowed, because we stopped that for a while.
If allowed.
Here.
Yeah.
Coin toss. Wait. Ben, heads or tails?
I'll do heads.
All right, flipping. Thanks, Google. Tails. You said heads?
Yeah, so
right,
it's RBJ.
I'm sorry, you might have to defend the Cat Boys.
Yeah. I think this one's yours.
Thank you for the $5 from Baby Bunny. 1982, newbie gets to defend new rule according to me. Lol, y'all are awesome.
So she's been on the show before, so
Yeah.
is she really a brand newbie?
But she
Been on
hasn't had to
3
defend yet,
episodes.
right? I don't think you've had to...
I had to defend like members of Congress needing to wear like stripper heels, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds like us.
$5 from Marceline GG. When Congress introduced a bill to have Bad Bunny replace the sitting president, hashtag Team Josie for Montgomery Council at large. Yes.
Heck
Vote
yeah.
for Josie. Go support her campaign, and she'll be on with me this upcoming week. And Bad Bunny, put him in charge. Let's do it.
Heck yeah, he'd fix things. Thank you for the £5 from Bex D2T. Unfortunately, I won't be able to call back next week as I'll be coming out of the surgery. Nervous and excited, perhaps another time. Hashtag Team Ben. Good luck on your surgery.
Oh, this is Rebecca, who we told to call back. I didn't realize her surgery was so soon.
Yeah.
Well, you can give us updates. Call him to give us updates.
All right, that was the last one, which means Team Jack did win.
Have to defend.
All right, so let me get our little arena here set up. Oops, nope, not that one. Here we go. So Team right is the winner. Team left is the loser. And the position is, in fact, a Catboy Parliament over Congress. So abolish Congress, establish Catboy Parliament. Wow, I can't talk.
Maybe can I have a motion to call it Parliament?
Parliament?
Yes, you can. I have to now. Hold
Yes.
on. I need to change it because that is
It's
too
Parliament.
good. Catboy Parliament. Wow, I'm so mad I didn't think of that. That's really good. Okay. All right, charging up the clock, Dr. Ben. Are you ready? 3, 2,
Yeah,
1.
let's do it.
Go.
So what's one of the most disappointing things in our country, our current Congress? They are not solving anything, and they're just bootlicking a fascist dictator. So instead, we should get rid of Congress entirely and establish the Catboy Parliament. Because imagine watching C-SPAN. I guess now it's a P-SPAN, Catboy P-SPAN. That sounds weird. you watch Catboy P-SPAN, and all you see are a bunch of people with cat ears. Some of them, with the ones with the headphones, and some just with the ears by themselves. But it would just look so much cooler if they're up there defending their position while actually looking like a Catboy with the ears, and they get to pick their ears too. Or they could have different colors depending on their new political party, which I don't know what the political parties would be, and it does not matter. But imagine, number one, that whole scenario. Number two, you have a largely more progressive group of people all in charge. But number three, if we have a backup plan, like let's say some people continue to be elected from the current Congress, imagine what it would be like to have Mitch McConnell wearing Catboy ears and having to become a Catboy. I don't think that would be ideal, but it'd be really, really, really funny. And so even for that reason alone, that would be a good reason to do this. But Catboys would make the world better. They'd make America better. They'd make America safer. And speaking of gender abolition and all that, what is more in favor of gender abolition than everyone being a Catboy? It doesn't matter what your gender is. Everyone is Catboy, and they're fabulous doing it.
10,000%. Well done. Also, obviously, the two political parties would be the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yes.
Damn, your cat puns are on fire. So good.
Love it. Well, thank you everybody for watching today's show, and stick around because you will be funneled right over into Calling It Now. So be sure to like and subscribe over here, and also like and subscribe over there as well, and join us this upcoming week for another episode of TACIS, and call earlier in the show.
Yeah, since we still have a few minutes to burn, let's hit the announcements again really quickly. So tomorrow at 6 p.m., we've got a Cus I Wanna with Forrest Valkai and Erica Gibbon. Sunday on the Sunday show will be Matt Dillahunty with Austin Archer. Sunday show After Dark will be with Forrest Valkai and Owen Morgan. Monday on Skeptalk will be John Gleason with Erica Gibbon. I know the thumbnail says Forrest. It's the bug. It's definitely John Gleason. I don't know why that's happening. Alyssa will be joined by Promise on Chewed Gum. Then Matt will be joined by Ian Harris on The Hang Up. And then, it'll be Ben and Josie back here next Thursday on TACIS. So, yeah, stick around. Sorry, we do have to burn an extra minute or two. It's always okay if we go a minute or two over.
Yeah.
But if we end a minute or two early, the audience drop off on that transition is not as ideal. So, let's
come to trivia tomorrow night on my personal channel.
Yeah, plug your shit.
Also, I'm about to drop a video about the Winter Olympics penis gate scandal. If you want to learn more about that, there's a video coming your way that I recorded before this.
Yeah, weren't they were doping penises? Something like that?
You'll find out in my video if you watch it.
Ooh.
Which I think it'll go out on Monday, maybe. I don't know. It'll go up at some time. But come to trivia. I'll tell you more at trivia.
Hell yeah.
Anything else you got to shill?
Just folks, show up. I stream every weeknight around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Central Time, talking about politics and the news, and from a socialist leftist perspective. If you got questions, show up. I love talking with folks. And yeah, that's about it over on Riverboat Jack over on YouTube. So
Yeah, go like and subscribe all the places.
yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Leave a like and comment and subscribe on this channel too.
Please do. I'm begging you.
Yeah.
You can also go to the Patreon and support us there and get access to LineCon when it happens. It's a great time. So lots of fun things in this side of the community if you want more.
Absolutely. All right, we are set. So thank you guys so much. We'll roll that outro. Also, like Ben talked about the Patreon, get your name on our little credit list here, you know? Support us and get a little recognition. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.